Part 13. The Rebirth of Space, the Lucky Girl from a Farm Family. Author, He Would Fire Every. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 Harvest. At first, Shen Zhuangtu was waiting absent-mindedly on the side, thinking to himself, what can a lame person know? As he listened, Shen Zhuang concentrated his attention. I sighed secretly. It's true that a person cannot be judged by his appearance. A lame scholar can talk about farming in a very clear and logical way, which is comparable to that of the veteran farmer who has been working for decades, and even has more experience than him. By the time Gu Dichang finished speaking, Shen Zhuangtu was so impressed with him. Gu Dichang turned to Shen Zhuangtu and said, "There are not enough people in Zhuangzi. You can go and find some people nearby. I pay 40 coins a day and don't care about food. Can you treat me?" Shen Zhuangtu nodded repeatedly. "It's a good treat, a good treat. 40 cents a day, the wages are not low." Gu Dichang said, "Well done." Shen Zhuang bowed his head in agreement, turned around and left. After walking a few steps, he suddenly remembered something and turned around and asked, "Mr. Gu, how many people do we need to find?" Gu Dichang blurted out, "No less than 200 people." Shen Zhuangtu chuckled secretly and replied respectfully, "Okay, I understand." After Shen Zhuangtu left, Gu Dichang said, "There are many people, we have to keep an eye on them to prevent anyone from sneaking around." Gu Chenglin nodded and said, "That's right, 40 cents a day, the wages are not low. Let's divide the work, each person will lead a team, keep an eye on it, and plant the seeds quickly." In the following days, Gu Huayu focused entirely on farming. Everyone and their helpers worked for more than 10 days to plant the seeds. Gu Dichang breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Everything that needs to be planted has been planted. Next, there is field management." Gu Huayu crossed her hands and raised her head above her head, stretched, and said, "It's done. Leave the rest to the fourth brother. I miss the bean curd rice in Uncle Wang's shop. Let's go back to the city today." Gu Chenglin patted Gu Chengjiang on the shoulder and said, "Xiao said that field management is very important. I will have to work hard for you in the future." "It's okay. Xiao has written down the precautions in a booklet. I just follow the instructions in the booklet." Gu Dichang responded with a bit of excitement. September has entered in a blink of an eye. In these months, Gu Huayu traveled back and forth between the county seat and Zhuangzi. At the end of July, Gu Huayu opened an agricultural and sideline food shop for Gu Chenglin, named Sixi, selling all kinds of agricultural and sideline food. "Xiao, are you going to Zhuangzi again today?" Gu Chengwan put the baked shortbread on the table, turned to ask Gu Huayu and was about to go out. Gu Huayu nodded, "Yes, the autumn harvest has started. I have to go over and take a look. The sweet potatoes will be made into potato starch. Otherwise, there will be no place to pile them." "Then I'll go with you," Gu Chengwan said while taking off her apron. "You don't need to go there. The business at Sixi is good, and third brother is too busy. You can send these shortcakes over later, and talk to third brother by the way, and ask him to clear out a warehouse." Gu Hua stopped. He came down and warned. Now in the Gu family, the brothers and sisters all obey Gu Huayu's arrangements. Gu Chengwan escorted Gu Huayu to the car. "Okay, I know, Xiao, please go slower on the road." Gu Huayu waved her hand and said, "I understand, King Zhu, let's go." In June, King Zhu returned to Xishan to visit shopkeeper Huang and Su Min. After learning about the young master, he insisted on staying with Gu Huayu to work. After Gu Huayu found out, she kept him here. "Okay, girl, sit down," King Zhu reminded, whipped up his whip and drove the car forward. The car arrived at the gate and met Gu Dichang, who was driving back. Gu Dichang saw King Zhu and asked, "Where are Xiao going?" Gu Huayu lifted the curtain, got out of the car, and replied, "Dad is back." I'll go to the village to have a look. Gu Huaidong and Gu Difang got out of the car, just in time. Let's go take a look with you. Gu Huayu hurriedly stepped forward to greet her. Hello Grandpa, hello Uncle. Grandpa has been working hard all the way. Please come in and have a rest. Gu Huaidong waved his hand. You're not tired, let's go to Zhuangzi now. Your father said that Zhuangzi will have a good harvest this year. I'll come over and take a look. Dad, why don't we go inside first and have a cup of tea, and then we'll go there after a while, Gu Dichang said. I'm not thirsty, no need, let's go there now, Gu Huaidong said anxiously. Gu Huayu turned around and said, King Zhu, go get some tea and fruit snacks. King Zhu bowed and responded, okay, little one, let's go right now. King Zhu turned around and entered the yard. Gu Huaidong looked at King Zhu's back and asked, who is this person? Gu Dichang explained, he is King Zhu. It turned out to be a man under Brother Huang. Brother Huang saw Zhuangzi running in both directions in Xiao city and was worried about Xiao's safety, so he asked King Zhu to come over and help. King Zhu came out with a food box, and Gu Huayu asked him to put it in the car. After a group of people got on the bus, they went straight to Shuilan Zhuangzi. When the car entered Zhuangzi, Gu Huaidong saw the golden scene outside the window and was so excited that he asked Gu Dichang to stop the car. Gu Huaidong got off the car and walked straight to the field. He reached out to pick up the bent ears of rice, picked out an ear and raised it to look at the sun. Then he turned around and said to everyone, what a bumper harvest, what a bumper harvest. This is the first time I have seen such full ears of rice after living for decades. Difang, look at it, every grain is very full. Gu Difang looked at the grains in his hand, nodded and said, it's very full. Gu Difang raised his head and looked into the distance and asked, Dichang, does this area belong to our family? Gu Dichang followed Gu Difang's fingers and looked over, well, they are all, not only these, but also this side, all the way to the river. The ones on this side of the river belong to our family. The road over there is bounded by the big camphor tree road. This is our home. Gu Huaidong followed Gu Dichang's explanation and was so shocked that he was speechless. After a while, Gu Difang said, can you harvest so much grain? Can the granary hold it? What if it rains? Gu Huayu said, a few days ago, Shen Zhuangtu had people build 2 drying rooms. If it rains, the millet will be put into the drying room to dry. The granary has been expanded and should be able to accommodate it. Let's first go to the granary to take a look. Gu Huayu looked at everyone and asked. Gu Huaidong nodded, let's go and have a look. Is it far? Let's walk there. Gu Dichang said, okay, it's not too far. Let's walk there. Gu Dichang threw the riding whip to King Zhu and walked to the granary with his father and eldest brother. On the way, Gu Huaidong asked, Dichang, what method did you use to make the crops grow so happily? It was obvious that the season was already past when you planted them. Was it good? Gu Dichang glanced at Gu Huayu and saw that Gu Huayu was walking with her head lowered, so he said, everything is possible. If the seeds are good, the land is fertile, and with proper management, the harvest will be good. Gu Difang took the words and said, fertilizer? Our land is also fertile and well managed. I think it's because of the seeds. Where did you buy the seeds? We will also buy some for our family next year. Huh? Xiao bought the seeds. You have to ask Xiao. Gu Dichang looked at Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu replied, oh. It's the seed shop in the county town. I'll buy more next time and send some home. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 122. Chapter 122 Joke. Sir, Miss Xiao, something's wrong, something happened. Gu Huayu turned around and saw Fugui hurried over with a panicked look on his face. He frowned slightly and asked, What's the matter? I asked you to find me here. Fugui leaned over and said, something happened at Rouge shop. Shopkeeper Wang and Miss Chang Jiao were taken away by the yamen. Gu Huayu's heart sank and she asked, what's going on? Why did the people from the yamen take them away? It is said that there is something wrong with the fragrant lotion we sell. The maid next to County Magistrate Chen's concubine used our fragrant lotion. First she got a rash on her body, and after half an hour, she died. Fugui lowered his hands and reported. Is the person dead? Gu Difang asked in panic. Fugui leaned back and said, that's what it says. As for whether this is the reason, I don't know. The shopkeeper has already asked someone to investigate. Gu Difang looked at Gu Huaidong at a loss. Dad, what should we do? Gu Dichang comforted him and said, brother, don't panic, let's go back to the city first. Brother Huang is already making inquiries. Let's ask the whole story first, and then think of something. Lao San, life is at stake. What can you think of? When he heard that his daughter had been taken away, Gu Difang was already in a state of confusion. Gu Huayu comforted, uncle, don't worry, the eldest sister is just helping in the shop. She is neither the owner nor the shopkeeper. Even if something happens, it won't fall on the eldest sister. Furthermore, in the 4 months since the Rouge shop opened, the best-selling product is perfume. If there was a problem with perfume, something would have happened long ago, and it would not have happened 4 months later. There must be something fishy in this. Let's go back to the city first and wait until we find out the whole story. After listening to Gu Huayu's words, Gu Huaidong felt at ease and nodded. Xiao is right, we can't mess up the situation. Go back to the city first, Lao San, if you know the people in the yamen, you can also help find out. Gu Dichang nodded in agreement, okay. Let's go back now. Gu Huayu said, my grandfather and uncle returned to Miwen, and my father and I went directly to Huangji. As soon as there was news, we immediately returned to Miwen to report it. Gu Huaidong nodded and said, okay, come back quickly. The people immediately returned to the city, and Gu Huayu and Gu Dichang went straight to Huangji. Huang Xiao just came back from outside. After the two parties met, shopkeeper Huang led him into the study. Entering the study, Gu Dichang asked eagerly, brother Huang, how is the matter? Have you found out? Shopkeeper Huang motioned for Gu Dichang to sit down. Sir, please take a seat. I'm still investigating, I'm afraid the matter is not simple. What's not a simple method? Gu Huayu frowned and asked. Shopkeeper Huang said, this matter involves the back house of the county magistrate's office. The county magistrate's back house? We sell some rouge and gouache, why are we involved in the county magistrate's back house? Gu Dichang asked. Shopkeeper Huang waved his hand, sir, don't worry, let me finish. Gu Dichang bowed his hands and apologized, I'm sorry, I'm worried. Brother Huang, please tell me. While pouring tea for Gu Dichang, shopkeeper Huang said, I understand, sir, you are careless and confused. County Magistrate Chen, this concubine, has no background, she is just a maid in the magistrate's house. Years ago, she climbed into Magistrate Chen's bed, was taken into Magistrate Chen's room, and became his concubine. Now, relying on the child in my belly, I am proud of my favor. As you know, sir, County Magistrate Chen is over 50, his first wife has no children, and all his concubines have daughters. County Magistrate Chen hopes that his concubine will have a boy in her belly and can take over the Chen family's incense. Therefore, he was very partial to this concubine and indulged her in a somewhat unprincipled way. The private affairs in the back houses of rich people are the most puzzling. Gu Dichang was speechless and asked, so, we are in for an unreasonable disaster? Gu Huayu disagreed and shook her head, I'm afraid it's not that simple. Gu Dichang looked at Gu Huayu and asked, Why did Xiao say this? Gu Huayu said lightly, the first wife of County Magistrate Chen has no heirs. She can allow Magistrate Chen to have concubines and have children. Either she is not a jealous person, or she is a cowardly and weak person. If it's the former, it's all the same to her whether the county magistrate's concubine has given birth to a child, and which concubine has given birth to the child. She has no need to attack a pregnant person. Even if this concubine's indulgent temperament makes her unhappy, she can wait for the concubine to give birth to the child, and then leave the mother to keep the child. Gu Dichang nodded and asked, is it possible that the concubine is plotting to kill Mrs. Zhang? How can I use this to get the county magistrate to divorce his wife? Shopkeeper Huang shook his head, impossible. Doting on a concubine and destroying your wife is a serious crime in Daxing. County Magistrate Chen is afraid of his wife's natal family and will not allow this to happen. Gu Dichang asked, is it possible that this is a conflict between this concubine and other concubines? Gu Huayu shook her head, it's unlikely. County Magistrate Chen doesn't have any men. There should be no one in the Chen mansion's backyard who doesn't know the dignity of my concubine's belly. Who dares to risk his life to cause trouble? This matter can only be done by the concubine herself. Let's go check out my concubine's origins and see if she has anything to do with us. Gu Huayu quickly denied this speculation and brought the matter back to herself. Shopkeeper Huang leaned forward and said, Su Min has gone to check and should be back soon. At the same time, in the backyard of the county government office, Magistrate Chen hugged his concubine who was crying so hard that she could not make a sound. He comforted her with gentle words, Xinghua, be good, stop crying. You cry so hard that my heart almost breaks. Mrs. Mao on the side echoed, and seeing, please stop crying. I know your grievances and I will definitely uphold justice for you. Magistrate Chen nodded repeatedly, yes, yes, I know all your grievances, and I will seek justice for you. I'm sorry, please stop crying. You are in a bad mood, and the young master in your belly is in a bad mood. If the young master is in a bad mood, he will not grow up well. Do you understand? After speaking, Magistrate Chen winked at Mrs. Mao. After seeing her, Mrs. Mao hurriedly said, yes. And seeing, please stop crying. You should think more about the young master in your belly. You shouldn't be too sad. And seeing looked at Magistrate Chen with red and swollen eyes and said aggrievedly, Master, you must uphold justice for me. Some people want to harm my family and the children in my belly. Magistrate Chen raised his hand to wipe his tears and coaxed softly, stop crying, I will definitely seek justice for you. Okay, stop crying, look at you, your eyes are swollen from crying. And Xing took the opportunity to hold Magistrate Chen's hand and asked, is it true? Do you mean what you say? Magistrate Chen squeezed Aunt Xing's hand lovingly, you even doubt my words. Aunt Xing lowered her eyes, pouted, and said coquettishly, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Please punish me. Magistrate Chen held Aunt Xing in his arms and said, you are telling lies again. How can I be willing to punish you? What you have in your belly is the son that I miss so much. Aunt Xing Jiao leaned against Magistrate Chen's chest and touched her belly, young master has been very naughty today, he kicked me several times. Speaking, Aunt Xing pulled Magistrate Chen's hand towards her belly. Just as Magistrate Chen put his hand on Aunt Xing's belly, Aunt Xing's belly started to move again. Aunt Xing said excitedly, Master, look, the young master has said hello to you. County Magistrate Chen felt the turbulence in his stomach, his face was full of smiles, and he said happily, hey, my precious son, you must be good, eat well, sleep well, and grow white and fat. Aunt Xing's stomach moved again, and Aunt Xing said coquettishly, Sir, my son said someone bullied his grandma, and he was very angry. My son wants the master to vent his anger on his grandma. Magistrate Chen nodded repeatedly and said, okay, I will definitely vent my anger on your mother-in-law. My little ancestor, please treat me well. Aunt Seeing raised her arms and put her arms around Magistrate Chen's neck, kissed Magistrate Chen's face, and said coquettishly, Master, it's the best. Magistrate Chen pinched Aunt Seeing's face and said with a smile, be good to me and give birth to your son for me in peace and contentment. Even if you want the stars in the sky, I will pick them for you. Aunt Seeing nodded obediently, okay, Seeing listen to the master. Magistrate Chen patted Aunt Seeing on the shoulder and said, well, that's how you behave. Aunt Seeing leaned on Magistrate Chen's chest, remained silent for a moment, and said softly, Master, please take the life of Gu Chengjiao from the Xingxin Rouge shop, one life for another. Magistrate Chen lowered his eyes and looked at Aunt Seeing and asked, tell me, what exactly is Gu Chengjiao's feud with you? Don't play tricks on me, tell me the truth. Aunt Seeing raised her head to look at Magistrate Chen. When she met Magistrate Chen's cold gaze, she lowered her head to avoid it, but Magistrate Chen pinched her chin with his hand. Don't hide, look at me and tell the truth, don't lie. Aunt Seeing looked at the serious Magistrate Chen and became nervous. Just when she was panicking, her stomach suddenly moved, and Aunt Seeing's nervous heart calmed down. He said, Master, Gu Chengjiao was once the sister-in-law of the slave's natal family. She was married to the slave's natal brother for several years. She had no children, and she thought the slave's natal family was poor, so she wanted to divorce her brother. The slave brother did not agree, so she called her natal brothers to the house to make a fuss, beating the slave's father, mother, and brother to serious injuries. The slave brother had no choice but to make peace with him. Master, my wife was severely beaten and is still lying on the bed unable to get off the ground. Sir, even though my mother-in-law bought me out, it was because the family was too poor and she had no other choice. Anayang is the mother of the slave family. When the slave family heard that Anayang was being bullied, they felt as sad as if they had been stabbed by a knife. Master, in the play it is said that the crow knows how to nurse in return, and the lamb knows how to kneel down to breastfeed. The slave family knows that grandma is being bullied but can do nothing. How can the slave family feel at ease? Aunt Seeing's eyes were filled with tears and sadness as she spoke. Magistrate Chen raised his hand to wipe away his tears and said warmly, you know what happened at home, why didn't you tell me earlier? Let me stand up for you. But County Magistrate Chen interrupted Aunt Seeing, but what? I can't make this decision for you yet. If you had told me earlier, Ahong's life would not have been in vain. Don't be too smart in the future, remember. Aunt Seeing looked at County Magistrate Chen blankly, thinking, Master, do you know how Ahong died? Mrs. Mao looked at the dumbfounded Aunt Seeing, squeezing the handkerchief in her hand, and was secretly worried for her. Ancestor, thank you quickly. Fortunately, Aunt Seeing came to her senses quickly, sat upright, and bowed to County Magistrate Chen with joy on her face to express her gratitude. I will remember this. I would like to thank you on behalf of my father, mother, and brother. Magistrate Chen held Aunt Seeing's shoulder and said gently, thank you. Your father and mother are also my father-in-law. If you bully my father-in-law, wouldn't that be a slap in my face? Aunt Seeing said worriedly, but the new family heard that the owner of Suxin Rouge shop is close to Huangji's shopkeeper. County Magistrate Chen squeezed Aunt Seeing's hand and sneered, you mean, I will be afraid of a merchant? What a joke. You, relax and take good care of your baby at home. I am here so you don't have to worry about the rest. Aunt Seeing wanted to stand up and bow to Magistrate Chen to say thank you, but Magistrate Chen stopped her. What are you doing? I've told you so many times that since I'm pregnant, I don't need these false courtesy. Aunt Seeing followed the strength of Magistrate Chen's hand and fell into his arms, starting a new round of acting coquettishly. Huangji, Chun Tang came in and said, shopkeeper, Honeysuckle is here. Gu Huayu said first, let her in quickly. Chun Tang glanced at shopkeeper Huang, who said, "Listen to the girl." Chun Tang retreats, and Honeysuckle quickly comes in. Gu Dichang blurted out, "Zhang Zia Hua." Lonicera bent her knees and said, "Hello sir, the little flower is now called Lonicera." Gu Dichang nodded and said, "Yes, a good name." Gu Huayu looked at Lonicera and asked, "How much do you know about today's affairs? Tell me carefully." Ling Dong lowered his hands and responded, "When the incident happened, my servant and Madame Lu happened to go to the market to buy things and were not in the shop. When the slave girl and Mrs. Lu came back, the shop was already in a mess. The slave heard that shopkeeper Wang and sister Cheng Jiao were taken away by people from the Yamen, so the slave came over to Huangji." Gu Huayu asked, "These days, has the shop received people from the county government's house?" Landong shook his head, "This servant doesn't know that shopkeeper Wang and sister Cheng Jiao are responsible for everything in the shop. The slave is helping in the backyard. Shopkeeper Wang calls the slave if he has something to do, and the slave goes to the shop." Gu Huayu nodded, "I understand. You go down and take Mrs. Lu to find Chun Tang and let Chun Tang arrange the work for you. There is no need to go back to Suxin for the time being." Lonicera bent her knees and retreated. Lonicera retreated, just in time to meet Su Min coming back. Su Min entered the room and bowed to everyone first. Gu Dichang hurriedly stood up and returned the courtesy. Shopkeeper Huang handed Su Min a cup of tea. Su Min took a few sips of the teacup and said, "I found it." Gu Dichang straightened up and asked, "What should I say?" "Sit down and talk." Su Min leaned forward and said, "Thank you, sir, no need, just stay down." The concubine of Magistrate Chen was named Han Xinghua. She was from Shita village, Sanhe town. Her mother, Mao, knew a woman named Mao who lived in the courtyard of Magistrate Chen's wife, Zheng. 5 years ago, her mother sold Han Xinghua to the Chen mansion as a maid through Mrs. Mao. Han Xinghua entered the Chen mansion and worked as a rough maid in Mrs. Zheng's yard. Years ago, Han Xinghua climbed into County Magistrate Chen's bed and was later raised as an aunt. Everyone calls her Aunt Xing. Gu Huayu already roughly understood it when she heard about Chita village in Sanhe town. He nodded and said, "It turns out to be the Han family. No wonder they want to target the eldest sister." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 123. Chapter 123. The visitor is not good. Shopkeeper Huang turned to look at Gu Huayu and asked, "Miss Xiao, does she know about the Han family?" Gu Dichang replied first, "That's Xia Jiao's previous husband's family." Shopkeeper Huang understood instantly, nodded and said, "So that's it?" Gu Huayu looked at shopkeeper Huang and asked, "Has Uncle Huang ever dealt with County Magistrate Chen?" Shopkeeper Huang nodded, "I've met him twice, but I haven't interacted with him before. He is a very high-spirited person and looks down upon merchants. A scholar, a peasant, an industrialist, or a merchant. The status of merchants themselves was extremely low, and it was understandable that others would look down upon them." Shopkeeper Huang laughed and laughed at himself. Gu Huayu knew in her heart that shopkeeper Huang and his team would keep a low profile and would not take the initiative to make friends with squires and celebrities, but that didn't mean that he didn't know the details of these people. Gu Huayu nodded understandingly. "How much does Uncle Huang know about County Magistrate Chen? Let's talk about it." Shopkeeper Huang sipped his tea and said, "Mr. Chen, a native of Xishan, named Zhongping, courtesy name Mianzi, and nicknamed Mr. Nanshan. During the reign of the late emperor, he became a Jinshi scholar in the 16th year of Xinping and served as a county magistrate in Xishan for 20 years. Gu Huayu couldn't help but ask, being a county magistrate in Shishan for 20 years. Isn't this too stable? Shopkeeper Huang nodded, it is indeed very stable. County Magistrate Chen prides himself on being a noble person and puts himself in the same category as Mr. Tao. It is said that his nickname originated from Mr. Tao's saying about opening up the wilderness in the south. This person is extremely contradictory. On various occasions, he appears to be indifferent to fame and wealth, has a breeze on his sleeves, and is untainted by the world. In fact, this is not the case, these are just his disguises. In life, Magistrate Chen was extremely extravagant and particular, and he had many wives and concubines in his backyard. Chun Tang once took people to deliver banquets to the backyard of the county government office several times. The county magistrate sent them to the concubines. Chun Tang came back and said that the layout of the backyard of the county government office was very particular. The county magistrate was dressed in brocade clothes instead of the usual fine cloth gown. Gu Huayu twitched the corners of her lips and smiled dryly. It's not easy to pretend to be one thing on the surface but behind the scenes for 20 years. You don't need any money for those tables, right? Shopkeeper Huang shook his head. How can I collect money when I deliver something to the backyard of the county government office? Gu Huayu leaned back on her chair, pondered for a moment, and said, for 20 years, people have been doing one thing before others and another behind them, but this person can sit in the position of county magistrate for 20 years without being promoted or demoted. It is not simple. Have you checked his network? Shopkeeper Huang nodded. After we settled in Shishan, we asked people to check. Chen Zhongping was able to stay in Shishan stably for 20 years because of his family's connections. The Chen family and his wife Zheng's natal family were both prominent families in Shishan. These two families are well known not only in Shishan, but also in Xinzhou Prefecture and even on Jiangnan East Road. Chen Zhongping had a cousin named Chen Zongqin, who was the same year as Chen Zhongping. At the time of the scientific examination, Chen Zhongping was only a fellow Jinshi, but Chen Zongqin aspired to the first place and was the Tenhualang of that year. Now in the Hubei department of the 6 ministries, the official ranks range from minister to minister. Chen Hongyan, the younger brother of Chen Zongping's mother, was a fellow Jinshi in the 8th year of Changping and is now working as an errand at Taikang Temple. Chen Zongping's parents both lived in Beijing with Chen Hongyan's family. In addition, another cousin of Chen Zhongping, Chen Zhongcheng, who has not yet entered the 5th server, works as a secretary on Jiangnan East Road. The Chen family produced several Jinshis in a row, and their reputation in the local area was extremely high. In Shishan, the Chen family is the only family that has its own clan school. These are the general relationship network of County Magistrate Chen. The Zheng Mansion is related by marriage to the Li Mansion, the natal family of concubine Li today. The wife of County Magistrate Chen is Zheng Paikan, and her sister Zheng Peiyao is the wife of Song Yongquan, the prefect of Song Dynasty in Hongdu Prefecture. His cousin Zheng Pailan married Li Size, the young minister of Dali Temple. Li Size was Li Guifei's natal brother. These are the daughters of the Zheng family who have married well. The highest ranking man in the Zheng family today is Zheng Pailan's father, Zheng Qiyao, who has reached the rank of vice minister of the Ministry of Justice. Hence, the Chen Mansion and the Zheng Mansion can be considered to be the same aristocratic families. The two families produced many talented people, and the only people left in Shishan were County Magistrate Chen and his wife. After hearing this, Gu Huayu pondered for a moment and asked, how much does Uncle Huang know about Zheng, the wife of County Magistrate Chen? Shopkeeper Huang shook his head. Ms. Zheng is a low-key person. She usually keeps to herself and rarely appears at anyone's banquets. Outsiders know very little about her. Chun Tang went to the backyard of the county government office several times, but never saw Ms. Zheng. It seems that this Ms. Zheng is the one with little fame and fortune. Gu Huayu nodded, and then asked, in addition to the county magistrate Chen Zhongping, There are also county magistrates and principals in the county government, right? Shopkeeper Huang took a deep look at Gu Huayu, nodded and said, yes. In addition to County Magistrate Chen, there are also County Magistrate Wang and Shizubo. Gu Huayu said, tell me about Wang Xiancheng and Shizubo. Gu Dichang saw that Gu Huayu was ordering Shopkeeper Huang like a subordinate, which was very rude. He coughed and reminded in a low voice, Xiao, don't be rude. Then he said to Shopkeeper Huang with a sad smile, Brother Huang, what is that? Shopkeeper Huang responded with a smile, Sir, you're welcome. Miss Xiao is very insightful. I like to listen to what Miss Xiao has to say. Gu Dichang felt relieved when he saw that Shopkeeper Huang really didn't mind, and asked, Xiao, what do you want to ask Wang Xiancheng and Shizubo? Shopkeeper Huang looked at Gu Huayu, he also wanted to know the answer. Gu Huayu first leaned towards Shopkeeper Huang and said, Uncle Huang, I was rude just now. Please forgive me. Shopkeeper Huang said it was okay. Gu Huayu then explained, in Shishan, County Magistrate Chen was the parent officer, and Shopkeeper Wang and the eldest sister were arrested under his order. If we sue him, we have to go to Xinzhou Prefecture or Hongcheng. The officialdom is mostly about officials protecting each other. With the reputation of the Chen family, it will be difficult for us to win. Moreover, the eldest sister is in poor health and cannot withstand the hardships. We must rescue her as soon as possible. The relationship between the county magistrate and the county magistrate is very subtle. We can make good use of this special relationship. Gu Dichang nodded suddenly. Su Min looked at Gu Huayu with admiration and thought to herself, as expected of the head of the family, he is so thoughtful at such a young age. After hearing Gu Huayu's analysis, Huang Xiao was extremely shocked. She nodded with a smile on her face and said, Miss Xiao's analysis is right. Wang County Chen, whose single name is Jun, is from Hongdu Prefecture. He was transferred to Shishan 4 years ago. Over the past few years, Wang County has wanted to make some political achievements and establish his prestige in the government office. Magistrate Chen suppressed him everywhere, making it impossible for him to perform. Therefore, Wang Xiancheng, who was restrained, was a little depressed. He often went to Huangji to have a drink and complain to me. The Wang family is considered a prosperous family. His father, Wang Jin, once served as the magistrate of Zhongling County. He retired due to illness 10 years ago and now opens an academy in Zhongling County. Wang Jin was close friends with Jiang Xinmin, the commander-in-chief of Hongdu Prefecture, and Jiang Xinmin was the cousin of Prime Minister Jiang. As for the historian Boshik, his family background is much worse than that of the county magistrate and county magistrate. In the county government, he is also the most irritated. Gu Huayu thought for a while and said, let's start with Wang County Cheng. Uncle Huang, you are familiar with him. You can negotiate here. Including the county government police officers, you can also help with 1 or 2 things, so that the eldest sister and shopkeeper Wang don't suffer. Uncle Huang nodded and said, okay, don't worry, Miss Xiao, I will make arrangements. The police have already asked someone to take care of them. Miss Xiaojiao and shopkeeper Wang should not be in trouble. Gu Dichang asked worriedly, Xiao, what we do is inconsistent with the laws and regulations, is it okay? Gu Dichang has never entered an official career. He simply believes that everything in the world has justice and everything must be done in accordance with the law. Gu Huayu explained patiently, what we are suing is the county magistrate and his concubine in the backyard. If we follow the regulations, we have to file a lawsuit. But the eldest sister can't afford to wait, so she can only go to the wrong side. Let's make the matter bigger and make it known to everyone, so that County Magistrate Chen will be afraid of the rumors and admit the wrong person and let him go. While collecting the evidence against County Magistrate Chen, we also prevented him from denying his mistakes and blocking the sky with one hand. If he really uses the trick of using power to suppress people from afar, we will have to break his sky. But where can we collect evidence about him? Gu Dichang asked worriedly. Gu Huayu continued, County Magistrate Chen has many wives and concubines in his backyard and lives a luxurious life. All these must be supported by money. He wears a long muslin gown when going out, but at home he wears rich clothes. This difference between appearance and appearance is probably to hide his appearance from others. Why do you want to deceive others? It must be because he has a guilty conscience. As Shishan's parent officer, why would he feel guilty? You did something shameful. Those shady things are all things that hinder him. For example, where does the money for his luxurious life come from? Also, where is the body of the girl who died in the backyard of the county government office? Uncle Huang, come with me to have a look tonight. Gu Dichang nodded while listening. When he heard something later, he looked up at Gu Huayu and asked, why did Xiao go to see the corpse? Find out the cause of death. Gu Huayu nodded, yes, people don't die for no reason. Besides, I know the fragrance I made myself, and it will never harm the human body. If he wants to frame me, he also wants to see if I am willing. Shopkeeper Huang nodded, turned around and ordered, Su Min goes to inquire and find out where the body is. Let's go with Miss Xiao in the evening. Su Min leaned forward and said, yes, I'll do it now, little one. Xiao, you. Gu Dichang looked at Gu Huayu, but stopped talking, with a worried look on his face. Gu Huayu comforted her and said, Dad, don't worry about me. Uncle Huang and Su Min are with me and everything will be fine. In Gu Dichang's heart, Gu Huayu was always a child. It was somewhat difficult for him to accept that a child went to check the body at night. Shopkeeper Huang helped, Sir, please don't worry, I and Su Min will protect Miss Xiao. Gu Dichang nodded and said to Gu Huayu, the matter is generally clear. Your grandfather and your uncle are still waiting at home. I will go back and talk to them first. Gu Huayu nodded and said, okay, Dad will go back first, and I will go back to Miwan later. Gu Dichang gave some instructions and said goodbye. At the end of the year, Gu Huayu and shopkeeper Huang, Su Min dressed in night clothes, climbed over the wall from Huangji's backyard. Su Min took the two of them straight to the morgue not far from the county jail. Entering the morgue, Su Min pointed to the corpse parked by the wall and said, girl, this is it? Gu Huayu nodded, walked to the body, stretched out her hand to lift the white cloth covering the body, and saw bleeding from the deceased's orifices. Shopkeeper Huang whispered, girl, it seems that this person died of poison. Gu Huayu nodded, he died of poisoning. As he spoke, Gu Huayu looked around the deceased, then took out a glass bottle and collected some dirty blood. Let's go back. When the three of them returned to Huangji, Gu Huayu said, let's go change clothes first and meet in the study later. Gu Huayu returned to the orchid room, entered the space first, analyzed the retrieved dirty blood, and got the results quickly. Gu Huayu took a look at the result, walked out of the room, changed out of her night clothes, and turned to go to the study. Shopkeeper Huang and Su Min were already waiting here. When they saw Gu Huayu come in, they stood up and greeted Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu motioned for the two of them to sit down, no need to be polite, just sit down. Shopkeeper Huang poured tea for Gu Huayu and said, girl, drink tea. Gu Huayu took the cup, lowered her head and took a sip, and said, that maid died of arsenic. The Han family did not hesitate to use the maid's life to make a fuss, she must have come with the idea of returning a life for a life. She wants my eldest sister's life. It was just Han's mischief. Chen Zhongping accompanied her mischief and ordered the eldest sister and shopkeeper Wang to be taken away. It seems that this matter cannot be done simply because the person who came here is evil. Su Min asked, then what should we do? Let him do this. Shopkeeper Huang looked at Gu Huayu, he wanted to know what she thought. Gu Huayu said calmly, since Chen Zhongping is acting recklessly, we will accompany him in a big show. How to act? Su Min asked, curiosity and expectation in her words. Shopkeeper Huang glanced at Su Min and signaled him not to disturb Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu said calmly, I want to see if the Chen family and the Zheng family can withstand the robbery. Su Min, go to Shuilan's village for me and bring everyone here. Be sure to rush to the county government office in Shenzhen. I will go back to Miwen later to discuss with my grandfather and the others, and let my uncle and father go to the Yamen to complain. Uncle Huang, you sent people to the streets to spread the news, trying to attract people who like to watch the excitement to the Yamen. We can only make the matter bigger, expose it to the public, let the people see the truth of the matter, and use public opinion to force County Magistrate Chen to admit his mistake and release the person. In addition, find out the circumstances behind Chen Zhongping as soon as possible and be prepared to fight him to the end. Su Min was eager to try it out. He liked the young master's fearless temperament very much. Yes, don't worry, Miss Xiao. As soon as the city gate opens, Xiao will leave the city and promise to bring people back to the city on time. Shopkeeper Huang was also overjoyed. In these days of contact, he had long admired Gu Huayu's calmness and calmness in times of trouble. Today, Gu Huayu's series of arrangements allowed him to see her thoughtful side. With such an outstanding young master, the revenge of the master and his wife will be avenged sooner or later. Gu Huayu didn't know that shopkeeper Huang's thoughts had changed 1,000 times. Uncle Huang, we must hurry up and get the handle on County Magistrate Chen. Shopkeeper Huang bowed and said, okay, I will find out as soon as possible. Gu Huayu stood up and said, these are the things I can think of for now. You can also think about it and see if there is anything missing. If so, let's discuss it later. I will go back to Miwen now to discuss with my father and others about redressing the grievance tomorrow. Shopkeeper Huang stood up and walked out. I'll send the girl over. Gu Huayu knew that shopkeeper Huang was worried about her returning to Miwen alone. I'm tired, let's go. Gu Huayu returned to Miwen and saw that the lights were still on in the study, so she walked over and knocked on the door. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 124. Chapter 124 Old Acquaintance. Gu Dichang opened the door and saw Gu Huayu. He looked behind Gu Huayu and saw that there was no one behind him, so he asked, Xiao, did you come back alone? Gu Huayu entered the house. No, Uncle Huang sent me to the door. Grandpa, haven't you rested yet? Gu Huaidong sighed, if something like this happens at home, how can I sleep? Gu Difang looked at Gu Huayu with a worried face and asked, Xiao, what should we do next? I don't know since when, the Gu family has always wanted to hear Gu Huayu's side of the story when something happened, and Gu Huayu has become the backbone of the family. Gu Huayu expressed her thoughts and then asked, Grandpa, do you think this is okay? Gu Huaidong nodded, I think it's okay. What do you two think? Gu Huaidong looked at his two sons. Gu Difang nodded and said, I am just a farmer and don't understand anything. Xiao has read a lot of books and knows a lot. If Xiao says it works, then it must work. I listened to Xiao. Gu Dichang thought for a while and said, the other party wants to use power to bully others. This method is really good. At least it will make him dare not mess around. Let's do what Xiao said. Tomorrow morning, my eldest brother and I will go to the county government office to complain and let the county government let him go. Gu Huayu continued, this is the best way I can think of now. When I go to the county government tomorrow, there may be emergencies. Uncle, you should be aware of the situation and adapt accordingly. If the uncle doesn't know how to deal with it, he can just wipe away his tears and complain. Let dad handle the rest. The eldest sister is in poor health and needs to take medicine every day, so she cannot stay in it for a long time. So, Tomorrow you must kill the shop, and it has nothing to do with the eldest sister. Let them release her. Let's rescue the eldest sister first. This is the worst plan. Gu Dichang nodded and said, okay, I understand. I'll write the petition right now. Gu Huayu nodded and said to Gu Huaidong and Gu Difang, there is a tough battle to be fought tomorrow, so my grandfather and uncle will go to bed first. Don't think too much, it's useless. Take a good rest and recuperate your energy, then you will have the strength to fight against the evil people. Gu Huaidong nodded peacefully, okay, if you listen to the whisper, go and have a rest now. After Gu Huaidong and Gu Difang left, Gu Dichang said, Xiao, go to sleep too. Gu Huayu said good night to Gu Dichang, returned to her room, entered the space and printed out a stack of Han's life. Gu Huayu fell asleep when she was ugly and woke up at the beginning of the month. After getting up and washing up, Gu Huayu went to the dining room and met Gu Qinglin at the door of the dining room, who was returning from buying breakfast. Good morning, third brother, Gu Huayu greeted. Gu Qinglin raised the breakfast in his hand and said, I bought the fried buns you like. Thank you, third brother. The two brothers and sister entered the dining room one after another. Gu Qinglin put out the breakfast and looked up to see Gu Huaidong and Gu Difang entering the door one after another. Called, Grandpa, Daddy, come over for breakfast. Gu Huaidong walked up to the front desk and sat down, picked up a bun with chopsticks and put it in the bowl in front of him, and asked, Xiao, can I go to the yamen with Difang and the others? Gu Huayu shook her head, no, just Grandpa waiting at home. Dad, if you listen to Xiao, just wait at home. Gu Difang agreed with Gu Huayu. Gu Dichang echoed, I can't help even if I go. Since you're gone, we still have to worry about your safety, so why not just wait at home? Gu Huaidong thought about it and nodded in agreement, okay. Xiao, what about me? What can I do? Gu Qinglin raised his head and looked at Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu swallowed the fried buns in her mouth and said, third brother, come with me. Let's go to the county government office to watch the excitement. I'm going too. I want to see how the dog officer talks nonsense in front of everyone. Gu Chengwan came in with the cooked porridge. Gu Huayu shook her head, the second sister takes care of my grandfather at home and prepares the eldest sister's medicine. Just when Gu Chengwan was about to speak, Gu Qinglin said first, Xiaowan listens to Xiao. Gu Chengwan glanced at Gu Xiao, nodded and said, okay, I'll wait for your good news at home. After breakfast, Gu Dichang handed the petition to Gu Huayu. Xiao, take a look, is there anything that needs to be changed? Gu Huayu took the document and looked at it carefully. After a while, Gu Huayu raised her head and handed the petition to Gu Dichang. I think it's very good, no need to change it. It's almost done, let's go over. They went to the county government together. On the way, Gu Huayu met Su Mi and Su Min nodded to her, girl, everyone is here, what should we do next? Gu Huayu handed a stack of Han Xinghua's life profiles to Su Min and said, give it to everyone and spread it out. Su Min looked down and his eyes lit up. He nodded repeatedly and said, okay. I understand. Gu Qinglin looked at Su Min's back and asked, Xiao, is this method really feasible? Gu Huayu swung her arms and walked forward, shaking her head and saying, I don't know either, let's give it a try. The group of people walked to the gate of the county government office. Fugui came over and said, Miss Xiao, the shopkeeper said everything has been arranged. Gu Huayu nodded and said, okay, I understand. At the same time, on the upper floor of Ula Tea House opposite the county government office, the waiter saw the Gu family and leaned over to report to the people sitting drinking tea, Sir, Dr. Gu and his family have arrived at the gate of the county government office. It looks like, they seem to be complaining. What should we do next? The young man saw Gu Difang going to complain and quickly added. The person sitting drinking tea was Mr. Shen, the manager of Chang'an restaurant. After listening to the boy's words, shopkeeper Shen stood up and walked to the window, watching Gu Difang beat the drum one after another. Shopkeeper Shen frowned slightly and said after a moment, "Let's take a look first." When the master left, he solemnly told him that he would take good care of the doctor in the future. After Dr. Gu entered the city, he asked people to keep an eye on her movements secretly. In the county government office, Magistrate Chen was having breakfast in the backyard. A servant hurriedly entered the house and reported, "Master, Mr. Shi is here to report that someone is beating drums to complain about injustice. Please move to the front hall to handle the case." Ansing sat down at the bottom and said with a pout, "I haven't eaten yet, and you come here to urge me. Are you going to let me eat?" Ms. Zheng glanced at Ansing with a cold expression. Ansing wrinkled her nose and glanced back at Ms. Zheng provocatively, but did not take Ms. Zheng seriously. Ms. Zheng ignored Ansing, turned to the maid next to her and ordered, "Serve the master to change his clothes." The maid bent her knees in response and turned around to get ready. Magistrate Chen sighed and said impatiently, "Really, I can't even eat in peace." After saying that, Magistrate Chen stood up to change his clothes helplessly. Ansing saw Magistrate Chen getting up and followed suit. Magistrate Chen saw this and said, "What are you doing with me? I'll eat you alive." Ansing bent her knees and said, "Thank you, sir. I've eaten well." Magistrate Chen was anxious, "How much do you eat? You feed 2 people with 1 mouth. If you don't eat well, what will happen to my son? Is he going to be hungry?" Magistrate Chen turned around and saw Ms. Zheng, who was silent. Then he waved his hand and said, "That's it? If you don't want to eat, just don't eat. Someone, please make a new portion of today's breakfast and send it to Ansing's yard." Ansing bent her knees and thanked her. Magistrate Chen stepped forward to help him up, and said warmly, "How many times have I told you? Why can't you remember it? You are heavy, so these formalities are omitted, but you don't listen." Ansing replied with lowered eyebrows and eyes, "Thank you, sir, but the etiquette must not be messed up." Magistrate Chen patted Ansing's hand and said, "Come on, I know you are the best behaved person. Go back and rest. I will come over to see you after I finish my business." Ansing slightly bent her knees in greeting, glanced at Ms. Zheng with raised eyebrows, held her waist with one hand, touched her belly with the other, and left in a majestic manner. After Ansing left, Magistrate Chen said to Zheng, "Paikan, please be patient a little longer." Zheng's smile did not reach her eyes, and she did not answer County Magistrate Chen's words. She just said lightly, "Master, please change your clothes. It will be bad if you keep people waiting for too long." Magistrate Chen laughed dryly and said, Okay, listen to my wife, business matters are important." After County Magistrate Chen changed his clothes and left, Ms. Zheng asked someone to take the breakfast away. Mr. Zhang turned around and told the maid, "Go and bring Madam's bird's nest porridge." The maid bowed her knees and left the room. Ms. Zhang gently advised, "Madam, there is no need to be angry for an ant." Zheng was sitting on an armchair, leaning on the back of the chair and rubbing her temples, and said coldly, "It's not enough to be angry. Flies don't bite, it's just disgusting." Ms. Zhang nodded and said, "What the madam said is true. As the master said, the madam will have to endure it for a few more days until the child is born and then send him away." Ms. Zhang stretched out her hand. Seeing this, Ms. Zhang took a step forward and handed the teacup into Ms. Zhang's hand. Ms. Zhang took the teacup, took a sip of tea, and handed the cup back to Ms. Zhang. Said, "That is a disaster. In the past, she looked timid. I thought she was honest." Unexpectedly, her stomach was full of twists and turns. Not only did she sneak into the master's bed, but she also relied on the master's favor to boss around in the backyard and act lawlessly. Honger caused such a big incident yesterday. Even though Honger was a maid, it was still a human life. How dare she? Mrs. John cupped her teacup with her hand and advised, Mrs. Mercy. Aunt Seeing is just a wild girl who grew up in a farmer's family. At her age, how much scheming can she have? The main thing is the old guy from the Mao family next to her. If the old guy hadn't come up with bad ideas, how would Aunt Seeing dare to do this? Aunt Seeing is just a brainless person. Madam, there is no need to take her seriously and endure her for a while longer. Zheng's face darkened a bit when she mentioned Mao, when that gives birth to the child, sell the old thing together. Mrs. Zhang leaned forward and said, Okay, madam, don't worry, I will make arrangements when the time comes. The maid came in with bird's nest porridge. Mrs. Zhang took the porridge and handed it to Mrs. Zheng. She said warmly, My wife didn't eat breakfast. Let's have some porridge now. Zheng sat upright, took the porridge from Mrs. Zheng's hand, lowered her head and took 2 bites. He raised his head and looked at Mrs. Zhang and said, When I woke up in the morning, my right eyelid kept beating and my heart was worried. I was afraid that something was going to happen. Please let people go to the front and have a look. Who is beating the drum today to complain? Yes, I will make arrangements now. Mrs. Zhang put down her teacup, took 2 steps back, turned around and hurried out. Magistrate Chen came out of the backyard and saw Mr. Shi standing under the willow tree, pacing back and forth. His heart sank and he asked, Who plays the drum? Hearing Magistrate Chen's voice, Master Shi turned around to greet him, leaned back and said, Sir, the drummers are Gu Difang, Gu Chenjiao's father, and Gu Dichang, his third uncle, who were captured yesterday. When County Magistrate Chen heard that they were from the Gu family, he didn't take it to heart and said, They are just 2 farmers, why are you panicking? Seeing Magistrate Chen's casual look, Mr. Shi quickly leaned over and explained, Sir, it's true that Gu Difang is a farmer, but Gu Dichang is not that simple. He is an old acquaintance. Magistrate Chen stopped, turned to look at Master Shi, and asked, Oh? Old acquaintance. It's not simple. Why is it not simple? Master Shi lowered his hand and replied, Sir, this Gu Dichang is the young talent who graduated from Jiangnan East Road High School 10 years ago. He is the youngest graduate in our Xinzhou prefecture. Magistrate Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and murmured, The young talent from 10 years ago. Master Shi nodded hurriedly, and then reminded, Yes, it is Gu Dichang who can write good articles at a young age. Magistrate Chen thought for a while, then nodded slightly, Oh, it's him. Seeing Magistrate Chen remembering it, Mr. Shi leaned forward and said, Yes, that's him. Magistrate Chen twirled a few strands of his beard in his right hand, pulled the corners of his mouth downwards, and said with a half smile, I never thought that we would meet him again after so many years. What a fate. Master Shi did not answer the question and stood on the side with his hands clasped. Where did this person go after so many years? Why is there no information at all? Magistrate Chen asked instead. Master Shi leaned back and replied, It is said that when I went to the capital to take the exam, I injured my leg. I suffered from leg disease and missed my official career. Now I am free at home. I help the family with some work during the busy farming period. During the busy farming period, I teach the children in the village to read and read. He's half a gentleman. Magistrate Chen pretended not to know and asked, At home? I remember this person is from Sanhe town. Master Shi lowered his hands and said, Sir, Gu Dichang is from Tai village, Sanhe town. County Magistrate Chen walked up to the main hall and said as he walked, I understand. He is just a down-and-out scholar. A phoenix without feathers is worse than a chicken. He is just a poor scholar. What is there to worry about? According to what we discussed yesterday 10 years ago, when Gu Dichang was in high spirits, he didn't even take him seriously. 10 years later, a disabled man with a disability, what else does he have to fear? Master Shi hurriedly followed County Magistrate Chen and said with some worry, "Sir, should we discuss this matter again? I think this matter should not be taken carelessly." County Magistrate Chen stopped and interrupted Master Shi's words impatiently. He said angrily, "What's there to discuss? What kind of trouble can a down-and-out scholar make? Human life is at stake. This is an indisputable fact. Do as we discussed yesterday." Master Shi wanted to persuade him again, but Magistrate Chen had already walked to the main hall, so he had to follow quickly. Master Shi winked at the clerk beside him, and the clerk quickly ran to the main hall and shouted, "Sheng Tang." The government servants standing on both sides of the court shouted Sheng Tang, and the officers on both sides of the court held water and fire sticks and shouted mighty in unison. Magistrate Chen passed through Dongnuan Pavilion and sat down in front of the public case with a high-hanging mirror. He shouted in a deep voice, "Who beats the drum to complain? Bring the person up." Magistrate Chen sat behind the court case and looked at the two brothers Gu Difang and Gu Dichang, who entered the court with a straight face and a very majestic look. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the Lucky Girl from a Farm Family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 125. Chapter 125 Misunderstanding. Gu Difang and Gu Dichang entered the court without kneeling. Magistrate Chen held the gave tree and knocked it on the table, shouting, "Who is here? Why don't you kneel down when you see me?" The officers on both sides poked the water and fire sticks so loudly that they shouted mighty in a long voice. Gu Dichang ignored him and calmly bowed to County Magistrate Chen, who was sitting on his right hand, and said, "Your Excellency, Gu Dichang, a grassroots citizen, has been in Changping for 7 years. He is now teaching the children in Tai Village, Sanhe Town. If I am good at reading and writing, everyone will respectfully call me Mr. Gu." The common people beat drums today to express their grievances, and the person they sued was the county magistrate sitting in the high hall. I would like to ask the county magistrate to take a look at this, and I would like to ask the county magistrate to make the decision for the common people. The people present, from Shishan's parents, Magistrate Chen, who was behind the public case, to the people who gathered at the door to watch the excitement, all looked at Gu Dichang with dumbfounded eyes. When people complain to officials, they complain face to face and to the county magistrate's deputy, the county magistrate. The court fell into silence. County Magistrate Chen's concubine Aunt Seeing killed a maid next to her, but framed the blame on a jasmine powder shop. County Magistrate Chen went to the jasmine powder shop indiscriminately to arrest her. As soon as Gu Dichang finished speaking, County Magistrate Chen stood up, pointed his finger at Gu Dichang and shouted, "Where did this lunatic come from? You are talking nonsense here. Come on, take it down for me." At the same time, Wang Xiancheng also stood up and shouted at Gu Dichang, "You are so bold, I am an official of the imperial court, and I will allow you to slander casually." Magistrate Chen turned to look at County Magistrate Wang and nodded slightly to him. After working together for more than 4 years, he felt for the first time that Wang County Chen was sensible. Magistrate Chen turned around and saw that the officer was still stunned, and said angrily, "What are you doing standing there in a daze? Didn't you hear my order?" The officers came forward one after another, preparing to take the person. Wang Xiancheng suddenly shouted, "Slow down." The officer turned his head and looked at County Magistrate Wang and then at County Magistrate Chen, wondering who to listen to. Magistrate Chen looked at Wang County Cheng and asked, "What does Wang County Cheng mean?" Wang County Cheng bowed to County Magistrate Chen and said in a low voice, "Sir, look at the door. There are people on the 3 floors inside and outside. Everyone has heard the case this person just stated. Sir, if you arrest this person in front of everyone, what will everyone think? How could Yu's mouth be blocked? Your Excellency, your reputation for many years will not be ruined in one day. Therefore, adults should think twice before acting. Although Wang Xiancheng lowered his voice, the people in the hall still heard it clearly. The Prime Minister of Wang County clearly expressed his concern for County Magistrate Chen, but in fact he blocked Magistrate Chen and made him unable to act in public. Magistrate Chen looked up at the door and saw people crawling on the door and windows. He felt regretful that he had been careless. He only thought that Gu Dichang was a down-and-out scholar, but he didn't expect that he would dare to sue him in public. When the onlookers at the door saw Magistrate Chen looking over, Su Min raised her voice and said, "Is what Mr. Gu said true?" That's why the magistrate became so angry that he had Mr. Gu arrested. Ruan Wu echoed, looking at the behavior of the county magistrate, "I'm afraid this is what he means." Lu Guang took the words and said, "This magistrate really covers the sky with one hand." Led by a few people, there was a burst of whispers at the door. Wang County Cheng raised his chin towards County Magistrate Chen, "Sir, what do you think?" Without waiting for Chen County Ling to reply, Gu Dichang answered, "Although there is nothing in the grass people, there are iron bones. If you can't get justice in this bright and clear county government today, ordinary people will go to Xinzhou Prefecture and Hongdu Prefecture to seek justice. If you can't get the justice you deserve in these places, then the common people will go to Beijing to seek justice. The grassroots believe that the world is big and bright, and there is always a place for justice to be redressed." Lu Guang applauded in the crowd and said, "Well said. The world is big and there is always room for justice. Mr. Gu, we support you." The people in Huangji's shop followed suit, and Su Min and Shen Zhuangtu followed closely behind with the people in Zhuangzi. After a while, there was a loud voice of condemnation at the gate of the county government office, and more people gathered. On the second floor of the tea house, shopkeeper Shen stood by the window, looking at the angry crowd not far away and listening to Lu Ming's report. Last night, shopkeepers Huangda and Sui Er from Huangji accompanied Dr. Gu to the county government morgue. With shopkeepers Huangda and Sui Er present, the younger one did not dare to approach. After the three of them came out of the county government office, they went directly back to Huangji. An hour later, shopkeeper Huang personally sent Dr. Gu back to Miwen. There are Ruan Wu and Lu Guang in the dark over the Miwen, and even the young ones can't get close. Just now, I saw Dr. Gu giving shopkeeper Sui Er a stack of paper. Shopkeeper Sui Er asked people to disperse them, and the young one went up to pick one up. Speaking, Lu Ming handed over a piece of paper. Shopkeeper Shen took it and looked down quickly. On the paper was Han Xinghua's profile and the relationship between Han Xinghua and Gu Chengxiao. Although it only briefly talks about the relationship between the two, it makes people not think too much. "Shopkeeper, it's so lively in the court today." Shopkeeper Shen just raised his head when Sun Dong excitedly opened the door and came in. Shopkeeper Shen saw Sun Dong's face beaming with joy. "Oh? Tell me quickly." Sun Dong recounted what happened in court in detail, and finally said, "You haven't seen it, but Magistrate Chen's face is as black as ink. This is the first time in so many years that I have seen Magistrate Chen so embarrassed." Lu Ming looked at shopkeeper Shen and said, "This Mr. Gu is indeed a talented man from Xishan." He pinched County Magistrate Chen 7 inches at once. In this way, Magistrate Chen will think twice before he wants to attack. Shopkeeper Shen nodded, "Mr. Gu's move is indeed worthy of praise." Lu Ming asked, "Shopkeeper, what should we do next?" Shopkeeper Shen thought for a while and said, "It seems that the Gu family can take care of themselves, and we don't need to take action. Let's just watch first." Sun Dong leaned forward and said, "By the way, shopkeepers, have you noticed that the people in Huangji are very respectful to Dr. Gu, just like how we treat our masters?" Shopkeeper Shen looked at Sun Li and asked, "How do you say this?" "The people in Huangji are very respectful to Dr. Gu." Sun Li nodded, "Well, just now at the entrance of the court, shopkeeper Sui Er, Fugui and the others were talking to Dr. Gu, and the younger one was right next to them. Shopkeeper Shen thought thoughtfully and said, I know, go back and keep watching. I will go to Hongcheng to see the master in 2 days and report to the master then. In the courtroom, Wang Xiancheng turned to look at Gu Dichang and said warmly, I just read your complaint. Mr. Gu was once the Jiwen of Jiangnan East Road in the 6th year of Changping. He was also well read in poetry and books. He should be a man who understands reason and the law. Magistrate Chen has served as the magistrate of Xishan County for 20 years. He always considers the people of Xishan, and this is obvious to everyone. How could Magistrate Chen know and break the law? There may be a misunderstanding in this. Mr. Magistrate Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Wang Xiancheng, who was speaking sternly. His intuition told him that things today were not simple. Gu Dichang bowed to the Wang County Magistrate and said, Thank you so much, Lord County Magistrate. Gu also believes that there is justice in this court, so he came here to petition. Like a peacemaker, Prime Minister Wang County, after persuading Gu Dichang, turned to look at County Magistrate Chen and said, My lord, this case is not only about human life, but also about your reputation. I believe that this matter needs to be investigated thoroughly so that the truth can be made known to the world, so that the deceased can be given an explanation and the reputation of the gentleman can be rectified. If Magistrate Chen still cannot see the good intentions of Wang Xiancheng at this time, then his 20 years in officialdom will be in vain. Magistrate Chen gritted his teeth and said, I know how to handle the case, so I don't need to worry about it, the county magistrate. Someone at the door raised his voice and asked, Your family members are involved in the case. Shouldn't the magistrate avoid suspicion? Wang Xiancheng smiled slightly, spread his hands and said, Look, sir, everyone understands this truth. Sir, although you are the parent official of our Xishan, the case now involves your backyard and your majesty. In line with the principle of avoiding suspicion, sir, it is best not to personally interfere with this matter. Of course, for the sake of your honor, I am willing to work harder, and I will try the case clearly and impartially, so please rest assured. At this point, Wang Xiancheng looked at the door and raised his voice, This old man is right, the law is enacted, and when an official or an official's family member is involved in a case, he should be suspended from office and evaded. The current case involves the death of a maid in the magistrate's backyard. It is not convenient for the county magistrate to intervene in this case, so I will do it for you. Master Shi, Master Shi, Master Li, you must record this clearly. In the future, when we submit this case, we can give an explanation to our superiors. Magistrate Chen had a sullen face, clenched his fists, and asked, May I ask Magistrate Wang, how do you plan to hear this case? Wang Xiancheng turned to look at County Magistrate Chen, wrinkled slightly, and rubbed his hands in embarrassment. Please think about it, this matter is related to your reputation. Mr. Gu and Aunt Xin have different opinions. We can't be biased, right? It is said that the people's eyes are sharp. Otherwise, how about we set up a case trial in the yard of the county government? County Magistrate Wang seemed to be asking for Magistrate Chen's opinion, but did not give Magistrate Chen a chance to answer. He continued talking to himself, the key to the case lies in the cause of the maid's death. As long as the cause of the maid's death is found out, the case will be solved, it's clear. Therefore, I will ask someone to carry the dead maid of Aunt Xin to the yard, and let them conduct an autopsy in public to find out the cause of the maid's death. Of course, County Magistrate Chen could not let Wang County Chen carry out Hong Er's body for public inspection. In the backyard of the county government office, Mrs. Zhang reported the information she had found to Mr. Zheng. At the end, he handed a piece of paper to Mrs. Zheng and said, Madam, I got this from the people who were watching. Many of the people watching were holding this. Zheng lowered his head and quickly scanned the content on the paper, stood up hurriedly and said, This person is not simple, I have to help you, Otherwise, I am afraid I will be in trouble today. What a disaster. After this matter is settled, I will first that old thing is dealt with. Mrs. Zhang hurriedly bent her knees and responded, yes, I understand. Come, please change my wife's clothes. The maid and mother-in-law hurriedly came forward to serve him. After Mrs. Zhang dressed up, she took Mrs. Zhang to the front yard. When County Magistrate Chen was being forced to do nothing by County Magistrate Wang, the officer came over and said, Sir, my wife is here. Magistrate Chen breathed a sigh of relief and said, Please come in. Zheng took Mrs. Zhang into the main hall, and after paying homage to County Magistrate Chen, she also paid homage to several officials from the county government. Magistrate Chen asked someone to put a chair for Mrs. Zheng. After Mrs. Zheng took her seat, he asked, Why is your wife here? Mrs. Zheng leaned forward and said, It's almost time for lunch, so I ask someone to come to the front hall to ask how long the master will be busy. The servant went back and said that the master was busy with Hong Er's case, and he might not be able to finish it in a while. I just remembered that I didn't report this matter to the master, so I came over in a hurry, disturbing the master's work, and asked for your forgiveness. Please forgive me. After Zheng finished speaking, he bowed to the county magistrate, the chief registrar, the master, and others. Magistrate Chen asked with a serious face, What did your wife say? Zheng bowed to County Magistrate Chen and apologized, I'm really sorry. These days, I have been in poor health and mental state, and the backyard has been neglected. Hong Er, the maid who died in the backyard yesterday, had a death contract and was asked by my concubine to work as an errand for Aunt Seeing. The day before yesterday, when Hong Er went to the warehouse to collect something, she stole 2 pairs of jade bracelets from my concubine's dowry. Yesterday, Hong Er took the jade bracelet to the shop in Zima village to it. She didn't know that the shop was also a dowry for my concubine, so she was caught red-handed. When I found out about this, I was very angry and executed him in anger. Hong Er's death has nothing to do with Suk's and Rouge shop. After executing Hong Er, I felt uncomfortable both physically and mentally, so I went to the temple to listen to Buddhist scriptures and forgot to tell the master about this. The master didn't know the whole story, so the misunderstanding arose. County Magistrate Chen listened to Zheng's story and showed a shocked expression, so that's it? I listened to Aunt Seeing. Aunt Seeing is too courageous. How dare she act like this? You should control her well. Zheng Shi leaned forward and said, It's all my fault. I have taught you a lesson. I will definitely control her well in the future. Zheng turned around and looked at Gu Dichang and Gu Difang, and said apologetically, I'm sorry, you too. It's because of my neglect of discipline that this kind of thing happened. Aunt Seeing was originally my maid. Later, I saw that she was well behaved and sensible, so I made her my aunt to help serve the master. Unexpectedly, she still has contact with her original family in the years since she came to the house, and now she is acting recklessly just because she is the master's aunt. In the final analysis, it was because I did not discipline her enough that she was so bold. Here, I would like to apologize to you too. Gu Dichang leaned forward and said, My wife is reasonable and understands justice. It is County Magistrate Chen's blessing that he can marry such a wife. It's just that the police came to the shop yesterday to pick up someone, which had a big impact on our business. Zheng said with a smile, Sir, don't worry, this is our fault, and we should compensate for it. Zheng turned to look at County Magistrate Chen and asked, Master, let's pay 200 taels of silver to compensate for the loss of Mr. Gu's shop. What do you think? End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every Chapter 126. Chapter 126 Secret. Magistrate Chen waved his hand. My wife has the final say on these trivial matters. Zheng Zheng bowed and said, thank you very much, sir. I'll take the decision now. After finishing speaking, Mrs. Zheng turned to look at Gu Dichang. I wonder if Mr. Gu is satisfied with the compensation of 200 taels of silver to Mr. Gu. Gu Dichang is also a person who accepts things when they are good. He bowed and said, thank you, Mrs. Zheng. Seeing that Gu Dichang agreed, Mrs. Zheng turned around and told Mrs. Zhang, go and get 200 taels of silver. Mrs. Zhang received the order and turned to go to the backyard. Soon, she led the maid out with 200 taels of silver. Gu Difang felt uneasy and asked softly, Lao San, do we really accept it? Gu Dichang whispered back, take it. Mr. Zhang took the silver from the maid's hand and brought it to Gu Dichang. Zheng said, I'm really sorry, please accept it, Mr. Gu. Gu Dichang bowed his hands towards Mrs. Zheng and said, I will accept this money on behalf of shopkeeper Wang and Gu Chengjiao of Suxan Rouge shop. It is a shock to them. Thank you to the county magistrate and my wife. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, can I take shopkeeper Wang and Gu Chengjiao back? Magistrate Chen waved his hand and said, of course. Gu Dichang accepted the money, bowed together with Gu Difang, came out of the courtroom, and waited for shopkeeper Wang and Gu Chengjiao at the door. Magistrate Chen returned to the backyard and complained to Mrs. Zheng, Piken, why did you give me 200 taels of silver? And why did you let me go? Zheng handed the paper to County Magistrate Chen and said, Master, take a look at this first. What is this? County Magistrate Chen glanced at Mrs. Zheng and lowered his head. Ms. Zheng took the teacup handed over by Mrs. Zhang, took a sip of tea, put the teacup on the table, and waited for Magistrate Chen. Have you checked? Who did this? County Magistrate Chen raised his head and looked at Mrs. Zheng. Zheng shook her head and said, we haven't had time to check yet. Judging from the above content, the other party knows everything about us. If things break out today, we will be the only ones who suffer. Magistrate Chen slapped the paper on the table, tugged on his goatee angrily and said, this matter must have been done by Mr. Wang County Cheng. In the court today, he targeted me everywhere. Zheng shook her head in disapproval, probably not. Wang County Cheng can't reveal Ant Xing's identity clearly without any discrepancies. Magistrate Chen looked at Zheng and asked, who could that be? Zheng she shook her head and said, I don't know who I am. Master, Ant Xing is a disaster and cannot be kept. Magistrate Chen raised his head and looked at Zheng, with a cold look in his eyes, and asked in a deep voice, why can't you keep me? Zheng Piken, what do you mean? You don't know that she has my son in her belly? Or are you jealous? You are going to be jealous, you are going to give me a baby. As long as you can give me a son and a half daughters, will I care about other women? By the way, you were the one who revealed the story about Ant Xing, right? Yes or no? You don't want me to be nice to you, right? Master, Master, Ant Xing shouted and rushed in while crying. Magistrate Chen turned to look at Ant Xing, who was running into the house with her big belly in her arms, and hurriedly greeted her, Xinghua, slow down. What's going on? Who bullied you? Ant Xing threw herself into Magistrate Chen's arms, weeping so hard, and said intermittently, Master, Aunt Mao is missing. I can't find Aunt Mao in the slave family. Mrs. Mao? You're fine. Why are you missing? Maybe you have gone out to do some business and will be back soon. Okay, don't cry. County Magistrate Chen comforted her warmly. Ant Xing shook her head and said, no, Aunt Mao won't go out. If she goes out, she will definitely report it to Mingnu's family. Sir, something must have happened to Aunt Mao. Master, can you help me? The slave family cannot live without Aunt Mao. In this mansion, apart from the master, it is Aunt Mao who treats the slave family well. Okay, okay, I'll send someone to find her. Don't cry. County Magistrate Chen comforted Aunt Xing while wiping her tears. The two hugged each other as if no one was around, which made Zheng's eyes hurt. There's no need to look for it, I've already asked someone to deal with Mao, Zheng said coldly. After hearing this, Aunt Xing's eyes darkened and she fainted gorgeously in Magistrate Chen's arms. Magistrate Chen quickly hugged Aunt Xing and shouted in a panic, Xinghua, are you dead? Why don't you come over and help? County Magistrate Chen roared at his servants. The servant looked at Mrs. Zheng and did not dare to come forward. Magistrate Chen turned his head and glared at Mrs. Zheng, if the child in Xinghua's belly is going to be good or bad, I will never end it with you. Master, Aunt Xing immediately opened her eyes. Are you okay? County Magistrate Chen asked gently. Aunt Xing shook her head and said, thank you, sir. Nothing happens to my family. Magistrate Chen said to Aunt Xing, you go back first, I will come over to see you later. Aunt Xing looked at Mrs. Zheng, nodded aggrievedly and said, Master, come here earlier, I'm afraid. County Magistrate Chen patted Aunt Xing's hand and said, good boy, don't be afraid. You go back first. I'll be here in a moment. Aunt Xing nodded obediently and walked out of the house, turning her head 3 times at a time. After Aunt Xing left, Magistrate Chen turned to Zheng and asked in a deep voice, you poisonous woman, what do you want? Zheng sneered, what do I want? You don't know what I want. Magistrate Chen pointed his finger at Mrs. Zheng and asked, Mrs. Mao has been serving you for many years, and you just deal with it as you say. You are really a cold-hearted and poisonous woman. Zheng raised her chin and looked at County Magistrate Chen proudly, I have said that I am a poisonous woman. If I don't do something, will I be sorry for my reputation as a poisonous woman? Magistrate Chen looked at Zheng's indifferent expression, his heart skipped a beat, and he asked nervously, what do you want? I tell you, don't mess around, otherwise. Zheng sneered and said, what else? Do you want to divorce me? That's up to you. Anyway, the old concubine has been disposed of. As for this bitch, I will bear with her until she gives birth to a child. Chen Zhongping, remember you. The words said. Magistrate Chen glared at Mrs. Zheng angrily, you jealous woman. Zheng sneered and said, am I jealous of my wife? Anyone can say this, but you are not qualified to say it. I'm not qualified to say it. I have to say it. Zheng Paikan, you are jealous of women. The more jealous you are, the more I want to take concubines and support my aunt. Aren't you unwilling to marry me? Don't you want me to touch you? As you wish, I will not touch you. There are many women in the world, many younger and more beautiful than you. You don't want to give birth to me a child, there are many women who will give birth to me. I asked you to give birth to a lot of children, and also asked them to call you mother. Zheng's face turned livid with anger. She pointed at Magistrate Chen and said, you villain, you bastard. Magistrate Chen leaned back on the soft couch with his arms and legs spread out, and looked at Mrs. Zheng sideways, I am a villain and a bastard. How can you rely on me? You'd better live a sensible life for me and don't offend me. I'm bringing this up here, you'd better not touch Xinghua, otherwise, I'll make you regret it. After saying that, County Magistrate Chen sat up straight, picked up Mrs. Zheng's half-drunk cup of tea, drank it, put down the cup, raised his hand to hold Mrs. Zheng's chin, and said fiercely, we have been married for more than 30 years. 30 years later, you still like the taste of Taiguanyan, and you always have it in your heart, right? For 30 years, I have never been able to live in your heart, right? Zheng allowed Magistrate Chen to pinch her chin until it hurt. She did not resist at all, but just looked at him coldly. When Magistrate Chen let go, Zheng said two words, "Madman." Magistrate Chen clapped his hands and said, "You are right, I am a madman. If I were not crazy, would I have kept you by my side for more than 30 years? Magistrate Chen gave Zheng a sideways glance and walked away. After County Magistrate Chen left, Mrs. Zhang walked over from the wall, helped Zheng sit down, and sighed, "Madam, why don't you tell me that he has been living in your heart all these years?" Zheng shook her head and said after a while, "So what if I tell you? He is petty-minded and suspicious. If I tell him, he won't believe it. Forget it, let him do it, as long as he is happy. Mr. Zhang is not worth it for Mrs. Zheng, old slave is not worth it for Mrs. Zheng." Zheng sighed and said, "Decades have passed in the blink of an eye, so what else can I do? Life is always moving forward day by day, so just live it with one eye closed. What should I do here, and seeing?" "Just forget it," Mrs. Zhang asked tentatively. Zheng rubbed her temples and said, "That old guy is gone. That can't make any waves. People usually stare at her, but don't pay attention to the rest. I'm not worried about this now, I'm worried about the Gu family." Mr. Zheng's hands froze and she looked at Mrs. Zheng doubtfully. "Gu family? The Gu family who is suing the master today?" Zheng she nodded and said, "With his temperament, he has been defeated by the Gu family today. He will not let it go so easily." Mrs. Zhang was puzzled and said in confusion, "Isn't today's matter settled? What else do you want?" Ms. Zheng looked up at Mrs. Zhang and asked, "Didn't you recognize Mr. Gu in the court today?" Mr. Zhang looked at Mrs. Zheng in confusion, "That lame Mr. Gu?" Zheng she nodded, "Well, that's him." Mrs. Zhang thought for a while, but still couldn't remember this person. "Madam, is there something wrong with this Mr. Gu?" Zheng sighed heavily and said, "It seems that you have really forgotten this person. This person is Gu Dichang, a talented man who was famous on Jiangnan East Road 10 years ago." After Mrs. Zheng reminded her, Mrs. Zhang suddenly said, "That's the one, the old slave really didn't recognize it." Mrs. Zheng waved her hand and said, "I don't blame you. 10 years ago, Mr. Gu was still a high-spirited and handsome young man. Now at first glance, he is just a farmer. Alas, things in this world are really going round and round. We met again, what a bad fate." Mrs. Zhang sighed and said, "Oh, who says it's not the case? I just don't know if I recognize Mr. Gu." Zheng leaned back and found a comfortable place to lean on the back of the chair. Looking at his expression, he should know it. Even if the master didn't recognize him, Master Shi and the others must have recognized him long ago. Mrs. Zhang said worriedly, "Well, if this is the case, I'm afraid something will happen again. 10 years ago, Mr. Gu let the master lose his face because of a cultural gathering. The master lost his temper for a long time when he came back. There has been no peace in the house for half a year. Today, Mr. Gu has lost face again. I wonder what will happen next. He is too small-minded and will retaliate. Because of a literary party, Mr. Gu broke a leg and lost his official career. Oh, it is such a sin to think about it," Zheng murmured. Mrs. Zhang was surprised and said, "Did I do this to Mr. Gu's legs?" Mrs. Zheng glanced at Mrs. Zhang. Mrs. Zhang hurriedly patted her mouth and said in an apologetic low voice, "I'm sorry, I lost my temper." Zheng said softly, "Okay, watch your mouth." Mr. Zhang nodded repeatedly, "Yes, I have written it down." Zheng she sighed and said, "Let people keep an eye on the people around me. If they make any movement, let them call the Gu family. He has already harmed me once, so don't let him harm me again." Mrs. Zhang bent her knees and responded, "Madam, don't worry, I understand." Zheng waved her hands and said, "I'm tired, so I'm going to have a rest. If anything happens, you can handle it." Mr. Zhang bent her knees and said, Okay, I will wait for my wife to rest. On the street outside the backyard of the county government office, Gu Huayu stood up, threw the branch in her right hand to the ground, pinched the peach cake in her hand with her left hand, crushed half of the peach cake into powder, threw it to the ground, and watched the ants struggling carrying peach cakes. Gu Huayu watched for a while, then looked up at the high wall of the county government office, raised her hand to smooth her hair, and turned around to walk towards Huangji. After everyone dispersed, she came here to dig out the ant nest. Zheng went to the court today to relieve Magistrate Chen from the siege. It was obviously Zheng's impromptu decision. Gu Huayu wanted to come and listen to Chen Zhongping and Zheng talking and see their attitudes. She didn't want her to hear the shocking secrets that were unknown to others. After listening to her mother-in-law's story about her father's leg disease, she was so angry that she wanted to go to the capital to settle the score with Luoqi. However, she never expected that the real villain was County Magistrate Chen, who was the culprit. Gu Hua patted the wall in the backyard of the county government office in an annoyed tone, and made a pop sound when her palm slapped on the bluestone. The pain caused Gu Huayu to throw away her hands repeatedly. "Little girl, why are you hitting the rocks?" an old woman asked with a smile when she saw Gu Huayu waving her hands and complaining of pain. Gu Huayu smiled awkwardly and ran away quickly. The old woman's laughter came from behind. "What a silly girl." Gu Huayu slowed down after running for a short distance, thinking to herself that it would be disrespectful to come and not go back. The real murderer was in Shishan, so he had to give a good gift in return. Otherwise, he would be sorry for the good intentions of the county magistrate. Gu Huayu was thinking about what kind of gift to return. Dad injured his leg and lost his official career. It has been 10 years. The capital and interest must be calculated clearly. County Magistrate Chen cannot lose money. As soon as Gu Huayu entered Huangji's courtyard, Fugui saw her and bowed to greet her. "Miss Xiao is finally back. You guys are looking for Miss Xiao everywhere." Seeing Fugui's hurried look, Gu Huayu felt nervous and asked, "What happened?" Fugui replied, "Miss Chang Jiao is injured and is in the living room on the second floor." After hearing this, Gu Huayu hurried to the second floor. On the corridor, she met Gu Chengwan hurriedly walking over. Gu Huayu spoke first, "Second sister, where are you going?" When Gu Chengwan saw Gu Huayu, she immediately had a backbone. "Xiao is here. I was going to look for you. You go and see the eldest sister quickly. The eldest sister is seriously injured." "Is the injury serious? Where is it?" Gu Huayu quickened her pace and asked as she walked. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 127. Chapter 127 Alertness. Gu Chengwan followed Gu Huayu and replied, "Yes, it seems that all the fingers are broken." Gu Huayu's heart sank to the bottom. She turned around and ordered, "Second sister, go to Miwen quickly and get my medical box." Gu Chengwan nodded in agreement, turned around and walked downstairs. Gu Huayu then warned, "Hurry, let Fugui drive you there." "I know," Gu Chengwan responded and ran downstairs quickly. Gu Huayu entered the living room, and Gu Chengjiang turned to see her, stood up and stepped aside. "Xiao is here, please help eldest sister quickly." Gu Huayu walked to the soft couch and grabbed Gu Chenjuan's hand. The shocking injuries made Gu Huayu take a breath. With just one glance, Gu Huayu knew that the middle finger, index finger, and ring finger of Gu Chenjiao's hands were all clipped off. Seeing the blood stains soaked in Gu Chenjiao's clothes, Gu Hua clenched her fists and said coldly, "Shopkeeper Wang will stay, and the rest of the people will leave first." Gu Chengjiang looked at Gu Chengjiao worriedly, walked out, took 2 steps, turned around and said to Gu Huayu, "Xiao, I'm at the door. If you need anything, just call." Gu Huayu nodded, "Okay, fourth brother, take them back first." "Second sister is here, Let her bring the medical box directly in. Girl. Wang Qin said guiltily after Gu Chengjiang led the others to retreat. Gu Huayu asked while inspecting Gu Chenjiao's injuries, did they torture the eldest sister last night? Wang Qin lowered her head and replied, yes, last night, County Magistrate Chen ordered people to take Miss Chengjiao out. When Miss Chengjiao came back, this was the case. Gu Huayu raised her head and asked, aren't you two locked up together? Shopkeeper Wang shook his head and said, yes, Miss Chengjiao is locked in the first room at the entrance, and I am locked in the fourth room at the entrance. They are opposite to Miss Chengjiao's room, with an aisle in the middle. Gu Huayu nodded, I understand, you can go out too. Shopkeeper Wang wanted to stay and help, but when he saw that Gu Huayu didn't want to say anything more, he lowered his hand and left the room. Soon, Gu Chengwan opened the door and came in, Xiao, the medical kit is here. Gu Huayu took the medical box and ordered, go and prepare some soft clothes for the eldest sister. If you don't understand, just ask Chuntang to prepare it. After it is ready, wait at the door. No one is allowed to come in and disturb me. Understand? Gu Chengwan responded, okay, I understand. I promise not to let anyone in. After Gu Chengwan stepped back, Gu Huayu took out anesthetic from the space and injected it into Gu Chengjiao, then began to set her bones. Outside the door, Gu Difang led the doctor and hurried over, but was stopped by Gu Chengwan. Uncle, Xiao is treating the elder sister. Xiao explains that no one will come in and disturb her. The doctor said unhappily, brother, I have to pay a consultation fee whether I see a doctor or not. Gu Chengwan pouted and muttered, I haven't seen a doctor yet, so why should I pay for the consultation? The doctor glanced sideways at Gu Chengwan, raised his head and said, I walked from the clinic and then back again. What was wasted was not time. Little girl, do you think I am as free as you? Gu Chengjiang hurriedly apologized and said, Doctor, I'm sorry. My sister is young and ignorant. Her words offended me. Please forgive me. In this way, we will pay the doctor how much money it costs to go to the clinic. The doctor's expression softened a lot. He looked at Gu Chengjiang and said, this little brother is really reasonable. I won't ask for more, so just give me $500. Gu Chengwan jumped to her feet and said, $500. Do you think other people's money comes from the strong wind? The doctor turned to look at Gu Difang, pointed at Gu Chengwan, shook his head and said, are you still being unreasonable? Gu Chengjiang pulled Gu Chengwan behind him and apologized repeatedly, my little sister is young and ignorant. Please forgive me, doctor. With that said, Gu Chengjiang took out a piece of silver from his purse and handed it to the doctor, can you please run over to the doctor? Thank you very much. Gu Chengwan glanced at the silver in the doctor's hand, stretched out her hand to pull Gu Chenzang's sleeve, and whispered, fourth brother, there is too much. Gu Chengjiang turned his head and winked at Gu Chengwan, telling her to shut up. The doctor weighed the money in his hand, bowed slightly and said, since you don't need me to see you, I'll go back. Gu Difang leaned forward and said, doctor, please go slowly. Gu Chengwan looked at the doctor's back and said, fourth brother, you just let him go like this? You gave me about 1 or 2 pieces of silver, right? Gu Chengjiang glanced at Gu Chengwan and said, forget it, harmony brings wealth. Gu Chengwan curled her lips and said, are you trying to make money by being friendly? You are a prodigal. Uncle, tell me, is the fourth brother a prodigal? Gu Difang also felt sorry for the money and nodded, brother Zhang is too loose, so it's not easy to earn money. We should give him a lot of what we should give. We don't need to give more to what we shouldn't. We don't have to waste money just to save face. Gu Chengwan hummed and pursed her lips, that's right. Gu Chengjiang lowered his hands and said, uncle, you have taught me a lesson, I won't do this next time. Gu Difang looked at the living room and asked, how long has it been since Xiao came back? Gu Chengjiang replied, it's been more than 2/4 of an hour. Don't worry, uncle. Xiao's medical skills are good and he will definitely cure my eldest sister. Third uncle and shopkeeper Huang are receiving Wang Xiancheng. Uncle, do you want to come and sit down? Gu Difang shook his head, no, I am a farmer and I can't speak what is said on the table. I can't understand what they are saying. Let the third child take care of the guests. I will stay here to guard them. Gu Chengwan suddenly remembered Gu Huayu's explanation, patted her head and said, it's done, Xiao asked me to prepare a change of clothes for eldest sister. With that said, Gu Chengwan hurriedly went to look for Chun Tang, fourth brother, you stay here and don't let anyone come in to disturb Xiao. Gu Chengjiang waved his hand and said, go quickly. In the white jade hall downstairs, Wang Xiancheng is sitting at the top, shopkeeper Huang and Gu Dichang are sitting on the left and right to accompany him. Wang Xiancheng's face was full of joy. He held the wine glass and clinked it with shopkeeper Huang excitedly. Let me tell you, Lao Huang, I have been in Shishan for more than 4 years, and today I am most relieved. Come on, let's go together. Shopkeeper Huang smiled apologetically and said, thanks to the county magistrate today. If it hadn't been for the county magistrate's mediation, how could the county magistrate let him go so readily? This glass of wine should be given to Huang by the county magistrate. Wang Xiancheng waved his hand, you're welcome, old Huang, how can we stand idly by while watching you being troubled by troubles between the two of us? This is not what a brother would do, nor what a gentleman would do. Wang Xiancheng waved his hands as he spoke, his words showing a hint of drunkenness. Shopkeeper Huang stood up and poured wine for him, and echoed, the county magistrate is a blessing to the people of Shishan when he acts impartially. There are not many people that Huang admires in his life, but the county magistrate is someone Huang truly admires. Wang Xiancheng picked up the wine glass, raised his head and drank it all, put the glass on the table, shook his head and said, I won't mention it anymore. It has been more than 4 years. I have done a lot of things. I have no merit at all, but no fault, it's all my own. Gu Dichang raised his glass and said, I have never been an official. I have only seen the glory of becoming an official. Today I realize that the world is difficult and everyone has their own difficulties. Master Wang is a true gentleman. I am very grateful and admire you even more. Come, I'll take this cup to Mr. Wang. I'll drink it first as a token of respect. Mr. Wang is free to do as he pleases. Gu Dichang's words touched Wang Xiancheng's heart, and he raised his head and drank all the wine in the glass. Shopkeeper Huang poured wine for the two of them and raised their glasses. It is said that God is watching what people do, and there are gods 3 feet above the head. Everything Mr. Wang has done for the people will one day be seen. This glass of wine, I pay my respects to you, Your Majesty. Wang Xiancheng opened his chat box and told the two of his difficulties. After hearing this, shopkeeper Huang and Gu Dichang were filled with emotion and unworthiness, and every word of comfort struck the heart of Wang County Cheng. As if he had met a close friend, Prime Minister Wang Xian talked non-stop for more than an hour, until he passed out drunk on the table. Shopkeeper Huang sent someone to take him back to his residence. Gu Dichang was concerned about Gu Chenjiao's injury, and immediately went to the second floor after seeing off Wang Xiancheng. Seeing Gu Difang, he hurriedly asked, Brother, how is Xiao Xiao? Gu Difang shook his head, Xiao Yu is inside, no one can come in and disturb her. Gu Dichang looked at the closed door and asked, is Xiao alone in there? Gu Chengjiang took the call and said, yes, Xiao is here alone. Before Gu Chengjiang finished speaking, Gu Huayu's voice came from the room, second sister, bring in the eldest sister's clothes. Gu Chengjiao hurriedly sent the clothes in. After a while, the door opened and Gu Huayu came out and said, eldest sister's wound has been treated. You don't have to worry. Fourth brother comes with me to get the prescription and medicine. Uncle Huang, you are coming too. I have something to say with you, you say. Gu Huayu went to the study and wrote a prescription for Gu Chengjiang. After Gu Chengjiang left, shopkeeper Huang asked, "What are your orders, girl?" Gu Huayu thought for a while and said, "To create an accident, I want Chen Zongping's legs, and the broken index finger, middle finger and ring finger of Han Xinghua's hands. I will give them back to her using the same elder sister methods she used to deal with them." Shopkeeper Huang looked at Gu Huayu in astonishment. Gu Huayu asked, "What? Is it difficult?" Shopkeeper Huang shook his head, "No, does this matter need to be delayed for a few days? Also, County Magistrate Chen." Gu Huayu said coldly, "He had his legs made by him. I want an extra leg from him, just for some interest. I am being kind to him by not taking his life." Shopkeeper Huang looked at Gu Huayu in shock. "Did he do this to Mr. S leg? This thing?" Gu Huayu nodded and explained, "Zheng said that at a cultural gathering 10 years ago, his father made him lose face, so he used despicable means to deal with him." Shopkeeper Huang leaned forward and said, "I'll make arrangements right now." The next day, County Magistrate Chen participated in the annual New Tasting Festival in Xishan. He fell from a high platform and his legs were crushed by a huge wine jar. On the night of Magistrate Chen's accident, a cry like a slaughtering pig came from Aunt Xing's yard. Mrs. Zheng arrived with her maid and mother-in-law, and saw Aunt Xing lying on the bed with a pale face and crying. Zheng asked, "Is she about to give birth?" Mr. Zhang stepped forward to take a look, shook her head and said, "Madam, Aunt Xing seems to have been frightened by something." Zheng glanced at the lost Aunt Xing, and said with a half-smile, "I have done too many things that I am sorry for." Aunt Xing pointed out the window, "There's someone." Zheng turned to the maid and said, "Go and have a look." The maid bowed her knees and replied shortly, "Go back to my wife, there is no one outside the window." Aunt Xing wanted to speak, but Mrs. Zhang said first, "Even if there was someone before, it's time to run away now. How can we wait for someone to catch her?" Aunt Xing cried and said, "I want to see the master." Mrs. Zheng glanced at Aunt Xing and sneered, "The master injured his leg and is now lying on the bed unable to get up. However, I will pass on your words. As for whether the master will come to see you, I don't know. Keep an eye on her, the master needs to rest now, do you understand?" The old lady bowed her knees and said, "Old slave, I understand." Zheng didn't want to stay any longer and said, "Let's go." Ms. Zheng turned around and left with her maid and mother-in-law. Aunt Xing was so angry that she raised her hand to grab something and threw it out. However, she got pregnant and she quickly held her stomach in pain. The woman who was guarding the door seemed not to notice, and allowed Aunt Xing to groan in pain in the room. It was not until 2 hours later that the gatekeeper heard the child crying and came in to help. Mrs. Zhang received the letter, woke up Mrs. Zheng, and reported, "Madam, Aunt Xing has given birth to a boy." Mrs. Zheng stared at the tent roof, and after a while she said, "Have someone bring the child to the main hall and let the wet nurse take care of him. I'll send him away early tomorrow morning. By the way, the master's injury can't be delayed. Let's have someone pack the boxes and cages. Let's leave for Hongcheng tomorrow. I am going to Hongcheng to attend the birthday banquet of Mrs. Tai in the past 2 days, and the boxes and cages that need to be collected have already been packed away. But, the master has left, what will happen to the official affairs of the county government?" asked Mrs. Zhang. Mrs. Zheng looked at Mrs. Zhang and said slowly, "There is no county magistrate in the county government office, and there is also a county magistrate. Furthermore, look at the master's leg being injured like this, how can he still have an official career?" Zheng sighed heavily when she said this, waved her hands and said, "Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. When they are collecting the boxes, you should keep an eye on them and take away all the things you can." If you can't take them away, they may sell them or give them away. You can see what happens. Over at Zhuangzi's shop, I have already told Lao Qian to take care of it. MRS Zhang looked at MRS Zheng in shock. Madam, if we leave Xishan, we will never come back. What? Are you reluctant to part with it? Zheng asked, looking up. MRS Zhang shook her head. No, I just thought it was too sudden. Madam, my legs are fine, how could I fall from the high platform? And I was pressed by the wine jar. Zheng stared at Granny Zhang and asked, what do you mean? Mr. Zhang met Zheng's gaze and said softly, old slave, I think it's too coincidental. Could it be that the Gu family did it? Zheng's heart was agitated. She was silent for a while, then shook her head and said, probably not. The Gu family didn't know about what happened 10 years ago. Mr. Zhang nodded, maybe I'm overthinking it. Zheng glanced at Granny Zhang and said, I don't blame you for thinking too much. Everything happened so suddenly and coincidentally. At dawn, have someone go to the place where the accident occurred to see if there is anything unusual. MRS Zhang bent her knees and said, okay, I understand. Zheng waved her hand and said, go down. Mr. Zhang took the order and retreated. MRS Zheng was leaning on the bed, not knowing where the focus was. She was thinking about what MRS Zhang said in her mind, did the Gu family do this? At first, Zheng didn't think much about it. MRS Zheng's reminder made her feel alert. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 128. Chapter 128 Hobbies. Zheng thought carefully about what happened before, from the Gu family playing drums to complaining, to the people watching, to the confrontation in the court, to the incident with the master, everything was too detailed. Is he really a family man? The Gu family is just a country family and should not have this ability. Zheng shook her head and rejected her speculation. Is it really Wan County Chang? Zheng was lost in thought. At dawn, An-Xing was carried out by the two wives, shouting, let me go, I want to see the master, I want to see my son. Mr. Zhang said in a deep voice, stop her mouth. A woman quickly stuffed a numbing core into An-Xing's mouth, and An-Xing struggled to hum. The two women half dragged and half pulled her to the carriage. They both shouted 1, 2, 3 and then threw An-Xing into the carriage. As soon as the carriage carrying An-Xing left the backyard of the county government office, shopkeeper Huang received the letter. At about this time, Gu Huayu changed Gu Chenjiao's medicine and came out. Liao Dong came over and said, Miss Xiao, shopkeeper Huang is here. Gu Huayu nodded and ordered, you can give the medicine to the eldest sister. Wait for the eldest sister to take the medicine and wait for the eldest sister to eat after a quarter of an hour. Lonicera nodded in agreement. Gu Huayu went to the front yard and saw shopkeeper Huang waiting for her on the corridor. When shopkeeper Huang saw Gu Huayu coming, he stepped forward to greet her and said, Han Xinghua gave birth to a son last night. The child was brought to her by MRS Zheng to raise. Han Xinghua was sold to the dental shop early in the morning. An hour ago, she was abandoned. Han Xinghua's hands. Gu Huayu nodded, I understand, that's the end of the matter. After the autumn harvest, I plan to go to Hongcheng to have a look. You can make arrangements and come with me. Shopkeeper Huang responded happily, okay, how long should we go? Are you planning to carry out your business to Hongcheng? Gu Huayu nodded, we have a good harvest this year, so we have to find a way to sell things. Firstly, Xishan is too small and cannot be sold at a high price. Secondly, I also want to visit Hongcheng. Shopkeeper Huang knows very well that today's girls are like dragons trapped in the shallows, unable to use their hands and feet, and it will be a matter of time before they leave Xishan. He nodded in agreement and said, okay, let's take the waterway and go north along the waterway. We'll prepare 2 boats down there so we can bring more cargo. Gu Huayu nodded and said, well, Uncle Huang is here to thank you. After Huang Xiao left, Gu Huayu was going to Zhuangzi, so she asked King Zhe to prepare the car. The car stopped shortly after leaving the city. Gu Huayu lifted the curtain and looked outside, asking, what's wrong? King Zhe straightened up and looked forward on tiptoes, and said, girl, there seems to be a fight ahead and the road is blocked. As soon as Gu Huayu heard that there was a fight, she immediately became interested. She raised the curtain and jumped out of the car. I'll go take a look. King Zhe called out worriedly, girl, please stay away, be careful of being stepped on. Gu Huayu turned around and smiled, walking back and said, Luzuo, do you think I'm the kind of person who is so stupid that people step on me? Don't worry, it's okay. King Zhe wanted to persuade her, but when she saw that Gu Huayu had already squeezed into the crowd, she had no choice but to shut up. Gu Huayu squeezed her way to the crowd and saw a few thugs punching and kicking a 40-year-old woman on the ground. The woman held her head in her hands and curled up, allowing herself to be kicked and beaten. I'll beat you to death for letting you steal my shoes. The round-faced chubby guy awkwardly kicked his feet at the woman and scolded her. Last time you stole my shoes, I didn't care about you. You're addicted to stealing, so you steal again. This time another tall and skinny ruffian raised his fist to greet the woman. This old guy is a habitual offender who has not corrected himself. She beat me hard and beat her to death. I want to see if she has a long memory. A man in blue clothes held his hands in front of his chest and directed everyone from the side. Stealing shoes, Gu Huayu looked at the woman on the ground in confusion. A woman, what is she doing stealing a man's shoes? The onlookers pointed and said, people who are dozens of years old and don't learn well deserve to be beaten to death. Alas, your method of attack will really kill her, Gu Huayu said. The leader of the thugs turned around and said, so what if she is beaten to death? She deserves to be beaten to death for stealing people's things. Gu Huayu folded her hands in front of her chest, raised her eyebrows and said, it's just a pair of shoes, as for letting your hands be contaminated with human life. After hearing this, an old man who was watching on looked and tried to persuade him, that girl is right. It's just a pair of shoes. It would be a sin to let someone's life get on your hands. The leader of the gangsters snorted coldly, you put it lightly, it's just a pair of shoes. A pair of shoes isn't bought with money. If she steals it, it's not illegal for me to beat her to death. Gu Huayu took out a piece of silver from her purse and threw it over, you are right. The shoes were bought with silver. I will compensate you for her. Please let her go. The man in green stretched out his hand to catch the flying silver, tossed it in his hand, and said with a smile, my little sister is kind-hearted, and she will be rewarded with good things in the future. Okay, for the sake of my little sister interceding for her, let's let her go. The rogues all stopped and said, okay, let's listen to the third brother. The man in Xingyi walked towards Gu Huayu and chatted up, my sister spends a lot of money. May I ask whose family my sister belongs to? Gu Huayu raised her head and looked at the man in green, without any fear, and asked, what? Is something wrong? The man in green said with a smile, it's nothing, nothing, little sister. Don't get me wrong. Husan, I admire chivalrous people the most. My little sister has a philanthropic nature. I admire Husan very much and want to make friends with my little sister. Gu Huayu raised her finger and pointed at the woman who was unable to move on the ground, and snorted coldly, a group of men beat an old woman. Do you admire a chivalrous person? Who are you trying to coax? Husan looked back at the woman and argued, hey, little sister, you need to understand that she is a thief and a habitual thief. She wants to take off my shoes when we are taking a nap. Gu Huayu glanced at Husan, so, a group of people should beat her. What? She can't be beaten for stealing, Husan asked. It's her fault that she stole things. You guys beat her up. Are you right? Gu Huayu asked with a raised eyebrow. Husan raised his hand and said, little girl, believe it or not, I will beat you up. Gu Huayu twitched the corner of her mouth and gave Husan a disgusted look. What? Can't explain it? Are you angry from embarrassment? Boss, what are you talking about with a yellow-haired girl? We have something to do, let's go, thin rascal shouted. Husan pointed at Gu Huayu and said, you ungrateful girl, I will remember you. After Husan and others left, Gu Huayu walked to the woman, knelt down and asked, hey, are you okay? The woman let go of her hand, showed her face, and raised her eyes to look at Gu Huayu. Thank you, I'm fine. Gu Huayu saw that the woman's eyes were calm and not panicked at all, so she secretly thought that this person was not a simple person. Gu Huayu picked up a stone and scribbled on the ground, and said, looking at you like this, you really don't seem to be in trouble. What kind of hobby is stealing people's shoes? Don't you dislike the smell? Or do you just like the smell? The woman glanced at Gu Huayu, put her hands on the ground, reluctantly sat up, and raised her hands to smooth her messy hair. He said frankly, I don't like stealing shoes, nor do I like the smell, but I like looking at men's feet. Is this a special hobby? Gu Huayu looked at the woman with a half-smile. Her navy blue clothes were stained with dust, and her fair and delicate skin was under her messy hair. If the scar on her face wasn't too ferocious, she would definitely be a beauty who still had charm. Like looking at men's feet? This hobby is really special, Gu Huayu repeated. Why? The woman glanced sideways at Gu Huayu and said, you are a little girl, why are you asking about this? Go, let's go. Gu Huayu drew a dog on the ground, pointed it out to the woman, and said, you call the dog biting Lu Dongbin, do you understand? The woman lowered her head to look at the painting on the ground, and couldn't help but laugh. You girl, you are interesting. Thank you for helping me just now. Gu Huayu stretched out her hand and said, bring it here. The woman looked at Gu Huayu with confusion. She didn't understand what she meant and asked, what can I bring? Gu Huayu asked, I saved you, shouldn't you give me a thank you gift? The woman took out a smelly shoe from her arms and handed it over, here it is, as a thank you gift, so you can keep it. Gu Huayu jumped up quickly and took a step back. She held her nose with her hands and leaned back. It stinks so much. Get it away quickly. The woman twitched her lips, threw the shoes aside, and said, you don't want them yourself, so don't say I didn't give you a thank you gift. Gu Huayu gave the woman a thumbs up, it's great to have a hobby of men's smelly shoes. I admire you. With that said, Gu Huayu turned and left. When the woman saw Gu Huayu leaving, she shouted to her, little girl, what is your name? Where do you live? Gu Huayu waved her hand without looking back and said in a loud voice, no comment, very stinky feet. We will see you later. If you are wrong, we will never see you again. The onlookers had already dispersed when the ruffian left. The woman watched Gu Huayu get on the carriage, watched the carriage leave, and murmured, interesting little girl. Gu Huayu went to Zhuangzi. Gu Chengjiang got the letter and ran over excitedly, Xiao, you're here. Let me tell you, it's made of potato starch. Grandma made hot and sour noodles according to the method you told me. I ate 2 big bowls. If my mother-in-law doesn't allow me to eat any more, I'd like to have another bowl. Xiao, the taste is simply amazing, one can't stop eating it. Gu Huayu smiled and asked, have everyone on Zhuangzi eaten it? Is there anyone who doesn't like it? Don't like it? No, every one of them wants to eat the pot. They all say it's delicious. Xiao, if we sell this hot and sour rice noodle in the city, we're guaranteed to get a good price. Gu Chengjiang was excited. Said. Gu Huayu nodded and said, that's what I have in mind. I'll ask the eldest and second brothers later to see if they are willing. The brother and sister were talking as they entered the house. Fang came over to greet them. Have you eaten, Xiao? Can I make you a bowl of hot and sour noodles? Gu Huayu happily agreed. Okay, thank you very much, second uncle. Thank you for your help. You sit down and rest for a while, I'll be back in a minute. Fang greeted and turned around to go to the kitchen. Second aunt, there is an extra bowl. Kingzu didn't eat it either, Gu Huayu shouted to Fang. I know, don't worry, Fang responded. Gu Huayu looked around the room and asked, where are my grandfather and the others? Are they going to the fields again? Gu Changjiang nodded. I'm digging sweet potatoes in the land on the riverbank. Xiao, dear, these sweet potatoes are so good at harvesting them. I can dig out 7 or 8 sweet potatoes with one hoe. A nest of sweet potatoes can have up to 7 or 8 kilograms. My grandfather first estimated that the yield per mu would be about 5 kilograms. Gu Huayu nodded. Well, there should be so many. Xiao, do you know how much you can produce in advance? Gu Changjiang asked in disbelief. Gu Huayu nodded and responded, yes, we can roughly calculate it. Gu Changjiang looked at Gu Huayu with admiration. Xiao, how did you calculate it? Can you teach me? Okay, I'll teach you later. How much powder have you made now? Gu Huayu agreed happily. Gu Changjiang pointed to the side room and said, all the things that are done are in the side room. You can come with me to have a look. Gu Huayu followed Gu Changjiang to the side room. Look, these are ready-made vermicelli according to what you said. They were divided into half a caddy and bundled into one caddy. There are a little more than 3 stones in total. In addition, there are 2 stone powders, and I haven't had time to make vermicelli yet. Gu Changjiang said. Gu Huayu walked around in the side room and said to Gu Changjiang, in the past 2 days, let people work harder to make 2 stone vermicelli, and 2 stone vermicelli will come out. In a few days, I will go to Hongcheng with shopkeeper Huang, and I will bring some to sell in Hongcheng. Gu Chenzang's eyes gleamed when he heard this, and he nodded repeatedly, okay, I'll make arrangements right away. Xiao, the hot and sour noodles are ready, come over and eat quickly, Fang shouted towards the side room. Here he is. Hurry up and make arrangements. It will take up to 10 days to complete. Gu Huayu nodded in response and turned around to tell Gu Changjiang. Gu Changjiang nodded in agreement, okay, you go eat quickly, I'll go and get busy. Gu Huayu chatted with Fang about everyday things while eating. At night, Gu Huayu stayed in Zhuangzi and told his elders about going to Hongcheng. Everyone hopes to sell things, so they naturally support it. Gu Huaidong was worried about Gu Huayu's safety and asked Gu Qinglin to go with him. Gu Huayu originally planned to take Gu Qinglin with her, so she nodded and said, okay, let's go back to the city and let the eldest brother and sister-in-law go to the city to look after the shop. The third brother will follow me to Hongcheng. Gu Huayu stayed in Zhuangzi for 2 days and worked with Gu Dichang and Gu Changjiang to design packaging boxes for potato noodles. On the way back to the city, Gu Huayu said to King Zhu, let's take a detour to the dock to have a look. King Zhu nodded in agreement and drove to the dock. He happened to see Husan being chased and beaten. Gu Huayu sat in the car and watched the excitement. When she saw Husan being knocked down and having his face trampled on the ground, she said to King Zhu, help him. After King Zhu received the order, he threw the broad beans in his hand casually. The person who was attacking Husan was hit. He let go of Husan in pain, turned around and cursed and asked who it was. Husan took the opportunity to get up, looked towards the carriage, stumbled over and shouted, boss, help. Gu Huayu smiled and said, this guy is very smart. Since he asked for help, let's save him. King Zhu leaned forward and said, yes, I understand, little one. A few gangsters stood there and looked at the carriage, not daring to move rashly. After a while, the man in green clothes among them asked, may I ask who the strong man in the carriage is from? King Zhu jumped down from the carriage, took a step forward, and said, "Didn't you hear his call? The head of our family is his boss." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 129. Chapter 129 Hussein. The man in green continued, "So, a strong man is also a person of the Tao. Since he is a person of the Tao, he should act according to the rules of the Tao. Our Qinglong gang has taken a fancy to this pier. In the future, please stay away. If you come here again to grab business, don't blame our Qinglong gang for being unkind." Seeing King Zhu supporting him, Hussein became more courageous and straightened his back. "Bah! The Qinglong gang is just a group of robbers who robbed and robbed. This pier is a place where hard-working people who can't find anything to do nearby come here to work hard. Most of them rely on hard work to earn a couple of bucks and go back to support their families. This has been the case for many years. Qinglong is a good helper and comes to grab business from here, and then let people take work from them, and they take money from it. If you eat both sides of the black-hearted, you won't be afraid of being choked to death." Hussein said angrily. "What does this have to do with you? You're just meddling in your own business." The man in green choked over. "What does it have to do with me? When you see an uneven road, you have to use your sword to help. Haven't you heard of it?" "Huh," Hussein put his hands on his shoulders and shouted back. "You're looking for death, brothers, come on." The man in green pointed a fire stick at Hussein and ordered the people around him. "Wait," King Zhu raised his hand to stop him. "What do you want?" The man in Xingyi looked at King Zhu and asked. King Zhu said calmly, "I told you, this person belongs to our boss. If you want to beat him up, you must first ask our boss if he agrees. I've been at the dock for so many days, and I've never heard of anyone behind Hussein," the man in green said angrily. Gu Huayu said in a deep voice, "King Zhu, this man has such a bad mouth, teach him a lesson." Upon hearing this, King Zhu was stunned for a moment, then leaned forward and said, "Yes, I understand, little one." After King Zhu finished speaking, he raised his hand and threw out a broad bean. The broad bean hit the opponent's front teeth accurately. In an instant, the man in green clothes felt his head tremble, and there was a sweet taste of blood in his mouth. The man in green spit it out with a poof. The white teeth were particularly conspicuous in the color of the blood, and the blood was even more dazzling against the white teeth. The rest of the people looked at the man in green in shock, holding the water and fire stick tightly and looking at King Zhu warily. The man in green brandished a water and fire stick and rushed towards King Zhu. "Damn you, I will fight with you." King Zhu waited for the man in Xingyi to rush towards him, swung his body to the left, avoided the water and fire stick of the man in Xingyi, and kicked the man in Xingyi right on the buttocks of the man in Xingyi. The man in Xingyi jumped forward a few steps, and then fell down gorgeously on the ground. King Zhu stepped forward and put his foot on the back of the man in green. He looked at the other people and asked, "How about it? Do you want to come up one by one or together?" Others held the water and fire sticks tightly, not daring to take a step forward. Instead, they stepped back, took a few steps back, turned around and ran away. King Zhu looked at the people running away, stepped on the man in green, and said, "Qinglong gang, I think it would be better to call them Turtle Gang." "Huh." The man in green howled in pain, "A strong man will show mercy." Hussein clapped his hands proudly, stepped forward and knelt down, raised his hand to pinch the chin of the man in green. "Goi Goi gang, this is good, a turtle with a shrunken head, just like you." The man in green glared at Hussein, "You damn." Before he finished cursing, the force of King Zhu's feet increased, and the man in green shouted in pain, "Mighty man, spare your life. Mighty man, Spare your life. Husan pinched the man in green's chin and said with a playful smile, damn it, Zhu Fengliang, it turns out you are also afraid of death. King Zhu glanced at Husan, raised his head and asked, Master, how should we deal with it? Gu Huayu responded in a low voice, teach him a lesson and let him take his people out of Shishan County. If he doesn't listen, I will kill him the next time I see you. King Zhu leaned forward and responded, yes. After saying that, King Zhu raised his leg and kicked Zhu Fengliang's right hand off. I'll this hand of yours so that you won't do all the bad things in the future. Do you hear me? If you want to save your life, take it with you quickly. Get your people out of Stone City. Zhu Liangfeng was so painful that he almost lost his breath. King Zhu said, you still won't leave. Zhu Liangfeng endured the pain and got up from the ground. He stumbled 2 steps and fell to the ground again. He got up again and stumbled away. Husan leaned toward the carriage and said, thank you for helping me, strong man. I'm here, Husan. Gu Huayu lifted the curtain and said, I know you are Husan. Husan raised his head and looked at Gu Huayu. He tiptoed past Gu Huayu and looked into the car. Seeing that there was no one in the car, he asked in surprise, are you the only one in the car? What, you're still not polite when you see the boss? Gu Huayu asked matter-of-factly. Husan continued to peek into the car without giving up, what about that? I clearly heard a man's voice just now. Gu Huayu lowered her voice and asked, do you want to ask where the man in the car went? King Zhu's eyes lit up, he glanced at Gu Huayu, and stood by the side respectfully. Husan stared at Gu Huayu with wide eyes, and it took a long time before he said, you. Gu Huayu jumped out of the car, what's wrong with me? Don't you want me to be your boss? Husan wisely took a step back, bowed his hands and said, I'm the boss, please accept my bow. Gu Huayu looked Husan over and said, I saw that you are somewhat righteous today, so I reluctantly accepted you as my subordinate. Remember, if you want to be a member of Minjiao Pavilion, you must first be righteous and not act recklessly. Do you understand? King Zhu's heart skipped a beat, and he admired Gu Huayu's ability to adapt to circumstances. Minjiao Pavilion? Husan had never heard of this name before. Although he had doubts in his heart, he looked respectful and kind. He quickly raised his hands and said, Master, please accept my bow again. I promise the Master that I will abide by it in this life. The rules of Minjiao Pavilion are to never do anything that would disgrace Minjiao Pavilion. Gu Huayu waved her hand and said, okay, from now on, just call me Xiao like Qingzu, miss. I don't care if you are long or short. Husan only thought that Gu Huayu was low-key and did not want to show off in front of others. Then he thought about Gu Huayu's rescue act a few days ago, and Husan made Gu Huayu a chivalrous and courageous expert. So he bowed respectfully and said, yes, I have written it down. Miss Xiao, I have just entered Minjiao Pavilion, what should I do in the future? Gu Huayu jumped up and sat on the railing in front of the carriage, swaying her calves and asked, tell me about your situation first. Where are you from? What do you know? What can you do? Who else is there at home? Husan leaned forward and said, Girl Hui Xiao, little Husan was born in the village of Shishan. When I was 8 years old, my father accidentally fell down the mountain while hunting and died. The next year, my mother died of illness. The younger one has 2 elder brothers. The eldest brother Huda is married and has 3 daughters and 1 son. The second brother left home 5 years ago to pursue a career, but there has been no news yet. I don't know if he is safe. After my father died, I did some hard work on the dock to earn some money to support the family. After my mother passed away, I only had to support myself. He started working hard at the age of 9. Gu Huayu frowned and asked, your elder brother doesn't care about you? Husan smiled bitterly and said, brother doesn't care, he just can't take care of it. Brother has to feed 6 mouths with 1 pair of hands. It's already very difficult for him. Gu Huayu looked at Husan and asked, "You don't blame your brother at all?" Husan smiled and said, "I used to complain when I was young and didn't understand, but later I realized how difficult it was for my brother, so I stopped complaining." Gu Huayu nodded, and then asked, "Tell me what you know." Husan scratched his head in embarrassment, "I only have some strength and can only do some physical work. I don't know anything else." As he spoke, Husan's voice became smaller and smaller. Gu Huayu glanced at Husan and said with some disgust, "Even if it's strength, I'm afraid it's also brute force." Husan lowered his head in shame. Gu Huayu asked, "How old are you this year?" 18. Husan raised his head to look at Gu Huayu and said with admiration, "Miss Xiao has great eyesight. I am exactly 18 this year." Gu Huayu glanced at Husan, raised her finger and pointed at the open space beside the pier and said, "Whose family belongs to this area?" Husan looked in the direction of Gu Huayu's finger, shook his head and said, "These are all open spaces and belong to no one's family." Gu Huayu was in a good mood. She turned to King Zhu and said, "When you return to the city, go to the yamen and buy this land." King Zhu bowed and said, "Yes, I have written it down." Husan was extremely shocked and asked, "Miss Xiao, what are you doing with this vacant land?" Gu Huayu said, "It has its own uses." Husan hurriedly asked, "What can the little one do?" Gu Huayu returned to the carriage, "Follow King Zhu and follow his arrangements." Husan said yes repeatedly. King Zhu looked at Husan and said, "Why don't you come up yet? Are you planning to walk back to the city?" "Huh? Oh, here we come." With that said, Husan jumped into the car and sat on the front railing with King Zhu. King Zhu asked, "Where do you live? Do you need to go back to get something?" Husan replied, "I will stay at the banker's house. I will follow Miss Xiao back to the city today, and then I will go back and talk to my brother tomorrow." Gu Huayu asked, "Is Xiazhuang nearby?" Husan said, "Girl, walk 2 miles north from here and you'll be there. It's very close." Gu Huayu said, "Then you go back and explain everything to your brother first, and then go to the Huangji Duhua rice shop on Yongsheng Road in the city to look for King Zhu. Have you remembered it?" Husan nodded and said, "Okay, I'll listen to the girl Xiao." Speaking, Husan jumped out of the car. Gu Huayu said to King Zhu, "King Zhu, give him your money bag." King Zhu stopped the car, took out his money bag and threw it at Husan, saying, "Go on." Husan said hurriedly, "Miss Xiao, no need, I have money. Besides, I don't need any money to go home." Gu Huayu said, "Take it, go back and give it to your brother, and let him do some small business." Husan was speechless for a moment and didn't know what to say. He only felt sad in his heart. Bowed and said, "Thank you, girl." Gu Huayu waved her hand, "Go quickly, go early and come back early. Let's go." Husan looked at the carriage going away, then looked at the money bag in his hand, and headed north. King Zhu drove the car for a while and asked, "Girl, are you not afraid that Husan will run away with the money?" Gu Huayu blurted out, "How much money can you have in your wallet?" "Just in time, let's test whether he is a short-sighted person." King Zhu nodded and said, "It's a good idea, but using more than 500 taels of silver to test people seems a bit too much." After hearing this, Gu Huayu's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly regained her composure, lifted the curtain and asked calmly, "How much? Do you usually carry so much money with you?" King Zhu looked back at Gu Huayu, nodded and said, "Brother Huang often tells the younger ones that money is the of success. He requires the younger ones to have silver in their hands at all times, at least no less than 500 taels." King Zhu turned his palms as he spoke. Gu Huayu put down the curtain and sat back. "Yeah, I understand." King Zhu said uncertainly, "Girl, how about we go get the money bag back?" Okay, just give it. I will give you the money when you get back, Gu Huayu said with heartache. King Zhu said hurriedly, no, that's not what I mean. I have money. No need to say more, this matter is settled. By the way, I have to hire a bookkeeper. From now on, your salary and the money you need will go to the bookkeeper, Gu Huayu said, changing the subject. Girl, do you think Husan will run away with the money? King Zhu brought the topic back. Gu Huayu asked back, do you suspect that he will run away? King Zhu nodded and said, well, the girl and Husan are just strangers. Moreover, the girl's understanding of Husan is only his one-sided opinion. For a person like Husan, 500 taels of silver is enough. He's been fighting bales on the docks for decades. Gu Huayu thought for a while and said, your analysis is reasonable. However, I still believe that he will come to find us. How about we make a bet? King Zhu became interested and responded happily, okay. What kind of gambling method? Gu Huayu thought for a while and said, in this way, from now on until noon tomorrow, if Husan doesn't come back, I will lose. Otherwise, you will lose. How about whoever loses will take the blame on his face and go for a walk on the streets of Shishan? Huh? Go shopping while taking the blame? Shouldn't you be fined money if you lose? King Zhu asked. Gu Huayu lowered her lips and said, how boring is it to be fined money? But, girl. Gu Huayu asked, what? Are you afraid? I'm not afraid of any girl. You're a man, so what do you have to be afraid of? King Zhu secretly thought, can a man be shameless? Men care more about face. Gu Huayu urged, hey, do you want to bet or not? King Zhu turned his head to look at Gu Huayu and replied bravely, whoever loses the bet will take the blame and walk around the street. Gu Huayu sat back with a smile, I'm somewhat looking forward to arriving at noon tomorrow. King Zhu looked at Gu Huayu with high spirits and said, girl, don't be happy too early, it's not certain who will lose. I just want to test my ability to read people. It doesn't matter if I lose, I'm just taking the blame and going out on the street. What a big deal, let's go back quickly. You can go to the yamen and buy the land at the dock. Gu Huayu replied in an understatement, and then got down to business. Okay, girl, sit down, King Zhu reminded, raised his hand and gave the horse a whip, drive. The horse immediately broke into a trot. Gu Huayu went to Huangji to discuss with Huang Xiao about building a warehouse at the dock. After hearing this, shopkeeper Huang strongly agreed and went to the county government office in person to seize the open space at the dock. A few people were discussing the warehouse in the study. Fugui came up and said, King Zhu, there is a man named Husan who is looking for you. Gu Huayu looked at King Zhu and smiled, you lose. End of this chapter. The Rebirth of Space, the lucky girl from a farm family. Author, he would fire every. Chapter 130. Chapter 130. Is it affordable? Shopkeeper Huang saw Gu Huayu laughing and asked curiously, who is Husan? King Zhu explained the matter in a few words. Shopkeeper Huang said with a smile, this is very difficult for King Zhu, girl, you don't know, we, Huangji, are the most honorable ones. King Zhu wants to be second, no one dares to say first. Oops, I'm looking forward to going shopping tomorrow. King Zhu looked at Huang Xiao and said, boss, please show some mercy, okay? Huang Xiao asked with a smile but not a smile, a grown man, you speak so loudly, how can you still regret it? King Zhu said hurriedly, who wants to regret it? If you don't regret it, why do you want me to ask for it? Huang Xiao glanced at King Zhu. King Zhu lowered his head in resignation. Fugui smiled and asked, shopkeeper, how do you arrange this, Husan? Shopkeeper Huang said, bring the people up. After Fugui retreated, Gu Huayu said sternly, Husan will be here soon, but we can't let him know about our bet. King Zhu asked hurriedly, then the bet is over. You have a good idea. It is a virtue to be willing to admit defeat. Shopkeeper Huang took over the words. If anyone asks, just say you didn't complete the task and were punished. King Zhu lowered his head and said nothing. Fugui brought Husan in. Gu Huayu saw a man in his 30s following Husan. He looked somewhat similar to Husan. He was probably Huda. When Husan saw Gu Huayu, he stepped forward and bowed in greeting. Hello, Miss Xiao, Xiao is back. This is Xiao's brother, Hu Da. After the ceremony, Hu Sangxiang and Gu Huayu introduced Huda. Huda stepped forward and bowed to Gu Huayu, and then bowed to several people present. Gu Huayu nodded towards the two of them and said, please sit down and serve tea. After the two of them sat down, Fugui came over to serve tea and stepped aside. Huda looked at Gu Huayu and said, my younger brother came home and said that the girl saved him today, gave him something to do, and gave him money. With that said, Huda took out the money bag from his arms, stood up and presented it to Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu didn't pick it up, so shopkeeper Huang reached out to take it and put it on the table next to him. Huda went on to say, I'm coming here today, firstly to return the girl's money, and secondly to see if what I said is true. Shopkeeper Huang looked at Huda and asked, why don't you trust your brother? Furthermore, why don't you collect the cash? Is it too little? Huda who replied quickly, Master, please calm down, I am not too young. No one introduced him, so Huda automatically took shopkeeper Huang to be Gu Huayu's father. To be honest, my parents passed away early. After my mother passed away, my brother wandered around. I was worried that he would be with the wrong person or do the wrong thing. He suddenly came back with so much money today, so I was worried that it was ill-gotten gains. Huda then explained. Shopkeeper Huang continued, now that I know that Husanwei lied, why do you still want to return the money? Huda bowed and said sincerely, come back to me, sir, the girl is kind and can do something for the younger brother. The younger brother is already grateful, how can he accept any more money from the girl? Shopkeeper Huang had nothing to say. He looked at Gu Huayu and said, girl, what do you think? Gu Huayu liked such a simple family very much and said, please accept the money. In this way, Husan will feel more at ease when working here. This, Huda looked at Gu Huayu. Shopkeeper Huang took the words and said, if the girl asks you to accept it, just accept it. You can rest assured that Husan is working here. As long as he is obedient, we will not treat him badly. Huda bowed deeply to Gu Huayu, thank you very much, girl. Shopkeeper Huang handed the money bag to Huda, I heard that your family lives in Xiazhuang. It's getting late now, so stay here tonight and go back tomorrow morning. Take them down so they can settle down. Shopkeeper Huang turned around and told Fugui. The wealthy man bowed to the two of them and said, please follow me. After Huda and Husan retreated, King Zhu leaned towards Gu Huayu and said, young lady has a really good eye for people. Gu Huayu smiled, she was just wrong. Said, remember to go shopping tomorrow. King Zhu nodded resignedly, the girl has the final say. Gu Huayu said, okay, tomorrow at dawn, we will start from Huangji and go north along Yongsheng Road. King Zhu planned to set off in Yinchu. It was still dark at that time and the county town was not big. It only took half an hour to walk around. Chen Zheng is leaving? Is it too late? King Zhu protested. It's not too late, it's just right. It's going to be lively at that time. Shopkeeper Huang took over. King Zhu dared not speak out in anger, but resignedly watched Gu Huayu discuss the route with shopkeeper Huang. Su Min looked at King Zhu sympathetically, leaned over and comforted him, don't worry, since your face is blackened, no one will recognize you. King Zhu's eyes lit up, yes. Su Min nodded towards him, and King Zhu hugged his fists gratefully. The next day, King Zhu was put on makeup by Gu Huayu and walked around along the street, attracting many children to follow behind and watch the fun. From then on, King Zhu became known as the Black Pot. 10 days later, Gu Huayu and shopkeeper Huang set off for Hongdu Mansion, accompanied by Gu Jinglin, King Zhu, Wang Qin, and a dozen other clerks. The two ships went north along the river, stopping at larger market towns along the way. Gu Huayu brought potato starch to a restaurant to sell it. At first, Gu Huayu made it alone, and later the others followed suit. The boat docked, and several people took potato starch to the restaurant to sell it. When we approached Hongcheng, only a quarter of the goods we carried were left. Gu Jinglin was very excited and kept saying that he had insufficient goods. Gu Huayu comforted her and said, "Third brother, don't worry. We are just here to clear the way for this trip. We can just come back next time and deliver the goods directly." Gu Jinglin nodded repeatedly. "Xiao is right, let's bring more out next time. On our way back, we'll stay with each potato starch shop and pay a visit to see how their sales are going, and ask them to place an order. We'll deliver it to them later." Gu Huayu said. Gu Jinglin repeatedly said yes. Shopkeeper Huang was filled with admiration. "She is really a master of business." Gu Huayu smiled and said, "This has just begun, and it is far from the word master." "Chen Lin, come on, I caught a big fish," King Zhu shouted from the bow of the boat. Gu Jinglin raised his voice and responded, "Here we come. Xiao, let's go and have a look together." Gu Huayu smiled and said, "Third brother, go ahead. I have something to discuss with Uncle Huang. Then I'll go." Gu Jinglin bowed, turned around and walked out of the cabin. Gu Huayu looked at the scenery along the coast and asked, "How long will it take to get there?" Shopkeeper Huang looked out the window, then retracted his head and said, "Girl, we'll be here in half an hour. I'll let King Zhu take the people to clean up the yard first, okay?" Gu Huayu asked, "Your house in Hongcheng?" Shopkeeper Huang leaned forward and said, "Yes, I put it down in the early years. It has been idle these years. Qingyu is in Hongcheng and occasionally goes to take a look." Gu Huayu thought for a while and said, "Don't worry, we'll be here soon. Let's find an inn to stay in. Let everyone rest first, and then go and clean up. You can also take the opportunity to inquire and see what's going on in Hongcheng. There's no harm in being cautious about the situation around you." Shopkeeper Huang immediately understood what Gu Huayu meant and bowed in response, "Okay, I understand." A group of people arrived in Hongcheng. Shopkeeper Huang took everyone to stay at the Jinyi Inn on Jewelry Street. Shopkeeper Huang said, "Everyone has worked hard these days. Let's take a rest today and we'll talk about the rest tomorrow." Gu Jinglin came to Hongcheng for the first time. Everywhere he looked was novel. He just hated that his eyes were not enough. How could he be willing to waste time in an inn? So he shook his head and said, "You guys rest, I'm not tired, I'll go out and take a look." Wang Qin said with a smile, "I'll come with you too. Just in time, I'm going to Zima village to meet an old friend." Gu Huayu saw Gu Jinglin and Wang Qin together and let him go out with confidence. After the two of them left, Shopkeeper Huang turned around and asked, "What are your plans, girl? Should you go out for a walk or rest in the inn?" Gu Huayu wanted to enter the space to chat with Atong, so she said, "I don't want to go anywhere, so I'll just rest in the inn." Shopkeeper Huang nodded, "Have a rest, girl. I'll go with King Zhu to the house on Jinpan Road to have a look." "Okay, you go and do your work and don't worry about me," Gu Huayu said. After Shopkeeper Huang and King Zhu left, Gu Huayu returned to her room and took a look into the space. Neither Atong nor Qin Feng were there. Gu Huayu left a message for the two of them and came out of the space. Being bored, Gu Huayu regretted staying, so she decided to walk around nearby. When Gu Huayu went downstairs, she heard the waiter introducing a customer. "Exit our store and walk east until you reach the Drum Tower. This street is the most prosperous and lively street in Hongcheng. There are so many beautiful, interesting, and delicious things along the way that you can go and see them. Gu Huayu's heart moved, and she walked eastward after leaving the inn. Along the way, she encountered a stall of a noodle maker, and Gu Huayu stopped unconsciously. "Little girl, what kind of noodle maker do you like?" the stall owner asked when he saw Gu Huayu staring at the noodle maker. Gu Huayu smiled at the old man, took down a Monkey King from the shelf, and asked, "Old man, how do you sell this?" "5 cents each," the stall owner replied with a smile. Gu Huayu paid the money and rubbed the bamboo stick on which the Monkey King was inserted with her thumb and index finger, so the Monkey King spun around Gu Huayu quickly. Gu Huayu was having a good time. "Hey! This guy did a good job. I want it." The Monkey King in his hand was taken away. Gu Huayu looked up and saw a boy of 14 or 15 years old playing with the Monkey King that he had snatched from her hand. The little kid looked like he was taking it for granted, and there was no trace of logic on his face. Gu Huayu saw that the kid's series of movements were natural and smooth. It seemed that he often did this kind of powerful and robbing things. Gu Huayu clasped her hands in front of her chest and looked up and down at this little kid who was wearing a light blue brocade gown, a mutton fat jade belt tied around his waist, and his hair tied with a white jade hairpin. The little kid looked at Gu Huayu as if it was nothing, looked at the Monkey King in his hand, nodded slightly and said, "After shopping for a long time, this thing is pretty good." Gu Huayu raised her hand to take back the Monkey King from the little kid's hand, held it in her hand and raised it towards the young man, saying, "This is the one I took a fancy to first." "You." The little kid is in the voice-changing stage, and his voice is like a duck's croaking. The little kid stretched out his hand to take the Monkey King back. Gu Huayu retracted her hand, avoiding the kid's hand, and said, "What are you doing? People have to follow the rules, first come, first served, do you understand? Where did you come from, wild girl? If you dare to something from our master, you will die," the boy who came behind the little kid shouted at Gu Huayu. Gu Huayu took 2 steps back, still rubbing the Monkey King bamboo stick with her hand and twisting it, wrinkled her nose, pursed her lips, and said to the little kid in disgust, "Is this your person? So rude, and, you really follow the Lord?" The young man stepped forward and said to Gu Huayu fiercely, "You are seeking death. Why don't you return the things to my young master?" Gu Huayu ignored the boy, looked at the little kid and asked, "What if I don't give it?" The boy raised his fist and said, "You deserve a beating." "Take it back for me," the little kid ordered. "Don't be unreasonable," a gentle voice sounded at the same time. The boy put down his raised hand, turned around and bowed, "Master." Gu Huayu raised her head and looked over, and saw that the person who came was 16 or 17 years old. His white clothes were whiter than snow, and his attitude was casual. The young man in white said expressionlessly, "Step back." The servant bowed and stepped aside. The little kid fearfully raised his hands to the young man and said, "Brother Li Tao, are you acting up again?" the young man asked in a deep voice. "No. No, I just saw that the Monkey King did a good job." Li Tao glanced at his brother and pointed at the face man in Gu Huayu's hand. "So, you grabbed it from someone else's hand without being polite?" "Huh," the young man took over. Li Tao lowered his head and looked at his toes and stopped answering. The young man looked at his younger brother, shook his head slightly, and whispered, "I'll take care of you when I get back." After saying that, the young man turned around and bowed to Gu Huayu, saying, "Li Chang, my brother-in-law offended the girl just now. I would like to apologize to the girl here and hope that the girl will forgive me." Gu Huayu looked at Li Chang and then at Li Tao. They were 70 to 80% similar in appearance. They had the same red lips and white teeth, the same tall nose, sword-shaped eyebrows, and starry eyes. One was as gentle as jade, while the other was rampant and irrational. Gu Huayu looked at Li Tao and was about to say it was okay. "Sai Wen likes this doughboy. It's rare for Sai Wen to like the same thing. Cousin, don't scold him. Little sister, You sold the doughboy in your hand to me. The visitor couldn't help but reach out to take Gu Huayu's hand. The Monkey King in hand. Gu Huayu was very angry. Who are these people? Taking a fancy to the face in her hand, he stepped forward to grab it without asking her if she was willing. Gu Huayu took a step to the side to avoid the paw that was stretched out in front of her. Hey, you little girl, I told you that I bought the noodle in your hand, but didn't you hear? The person who came reached out and grabbed the empty space and said angrily. Gu Huayu rubbed the bamboo stick of the noodle maker, looked at the visitor with a half smile, and said slowly, I heard what you said. However, I haven't made an offer yet, so how do you know whether you can afford it? Hey. You little girl is quite interesting. Then why don't you set a price? How much does a guy like you cost? I want to see what else Song Kong Gaiyu, can't afford in Hongcheng? Song Kong Gaiyu shook the folding fan in his hand with a bang, and glanced at Gu Huayu while shaking the folding fan, with a bit of contempt in his eyes. Zion, don't embarrass a little girl. Today's matter is to think about the mistake first. Li Cheng stopped him. End of this chapter.